Psalm 145. The Lord is good to all, and his mercies are over all his works. All your works shall give thanks to you, O Lord, and your godly ones shall bless you. Let us pray. Our great God of highest heaven, you alone are worthy of our praise. Your Son has created all things, things that are in heaven, on earth, both visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions, rulers or authorities. All things were created through him and for him, and in him we live and move and have our being. Lord, we assembled today to give you thanks for your sovereign rule that has brought us to this time in history. We are here because you chose us to be your appointed governmental officials to lead this state. Please empower your needy servants to serve and govern those who are entrusted to our care. We are your stewards, accountable to the Most High God, who stands ready to judge the living and the dead. For from him and through him and to him are all things. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chaplain. All right, members, we're in the roll call. Please record your presence. We're in the roll call. Tuesday, March 24th.
Week 11.
Hello and welcome to State House today. I'm Gavin Jackson along with Mayan Schechter here at the South Carolina State House lobby for week 11. It's Tuesday, March 24th, 2026. We're kicking off a fresh week with firing on all cylinders, Mayan. We have the House and the Senate in. That's right, because the House was on furlough last week. So everyone's back together under the copper-clad cupola here in Columbia.
That's right. There you go.
So we're a lot to see what's going on. Of course, last week was a big week in the Senate. It really capped off that debate over the hemp-derived consumable bill, H3924. We saw a lot of debate over that. And Mayan, you told me that even though we saw the second reading last week, it was a big debate. It was a reconsidered vote, too, a lot going back and forth we can talk about, but that's still going through the Senate today, in a sense.
Right. So it's sounding like we still need a third reading, a third final vote. And usually those are pretty perfunctory. They don't really get a lot of headlines, not a lot of drama. We have seen, though, some drama on third reading.
Amendments,
this session.
drama,
yeah. Weirdly. So it does sound like perhaps there may be some technical amendments on the hemp THC drink bill that they will have to discuss now. Of course, that sort of can open up Pandora's box a little bit when you start to give other senators an opportunity to maybe add their own amendments. So we'll have to see how that goes. My understanding is that will be dealt today. It is one of, obviously, a handful of bills that the Senate is going through. They are kind of in a calendar clearing mode because April is right around the corner.
Knock, knock.
Next week, and that is really when the Senate starts to kind of get into budget mode. The Senate Finance Committee will start their budget deliberations in early April, and then later April, the budget will actually hit the Senate floor.
And then, of course, what we saw in that bill, which we don't expect to fundamentally change too much on this third reading besides some technical amendments, but again, some curveballs can come out of it, is to see those, 5 milligram THC drinks being sold wherever beer and wine is sold, 10 milligram drinks being sold at liquor stores with gummies and other consumables.
Right, and one big caveat is that the drinks that are sold inside the retail stores will be behind
the counter. And in liquor store.
And in liquor. Well,
safer.
Yes, the gummies in
saying.
particular will be behind the counter at the liquor stores. And again, so it's completely unregulated right now. This legislation not only regulates it, but also kind of classifies it as legal. Now, of course, federal law change could, render this whole entire bill moot. But we won't know until later this year, or perhaps months beyond
Would also require Congress to act, which
that's right.
is always challenging, especially in an election year like this. But again, and now it's going to go back to the House where it originated from. Of course, this bill was heavily amended and passed over there. So do we have any inkling about what the House could be doing when they see this bill? I mean, there was always discussion going on with the lawmakers over here about how the House would feel about what they're doing to the bill. And there was some support. So I have to imagine there is still a good bit of support over there. But again, fundamentally different than what it started out as over here.
Right. So the House could amend it back. The House could concur with the Senate amendments, send it to the governor. The House could help force it to a conference committee, kind of a negotiation phase between 3 House members, 3 senators. I still think it's a little bit up in the air. Obviously, there were a lot of personal feelings that got brought out during the Senate debate. We know that there's a lot of personal feelings about this bill over in the House, and we saw what happened when they tried to even do a regulation bill. So it's a little bit, right, it's a little bit unclear right now exactly what the House plans to do. I think regardless, there'll be some type of debate on the legislation, but it's a bit of a question mark right now.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, as we approach, sine die, May 14th, the last day of session, again, we're getting to that point. April's around the corner. The budget's still going on in the Senate. They're going to want to see something done, possibly, because at the end of the day, if this bill doesn't get to the governor, does not get passed into law, then it's still the wild, wild west.
Right.
And at the bare minimum, you want to see them try and regulate these drinks down to those who are 21 and under, like they can't purchase these.
Right, and I think that's been the message of a lot of Republican leaders, that especially to the all or nothing crowd who want to see this stuff banned, that's not going to happen. It's unrealistic. A ban has not been able to get through the House. A ban was not able to get through the Senate. So at minimum, regulate it in some kind of way so that, again, not anybody can just get these products.
And just kind of keeping with what happened in the Senate last week, and we will jump into either of the chambers because they both gavelled in at noon, and we'll jump around once we get out of here. But I want to mention one thing that we did see pass the Senate. We've seen SCDOT Secretary Justin Powell floating around the lobby these past couple of days. Of course, the whole debate in the Senate has been dominated by the THC drinks, but there have been some other bills moving through as we're trying to get through that calendar. And one of those bills was S831, which is the SCDOT modernization bill. It's been stripped down a little bit, but it really gives, it really changes some of the structures within SCDOT, moves things around, gives them different powers and different responsibilities, different folks. But also, it would make permitting for environmental permits a local decision here at the state level versus the national level. It would also free up the ability to do more tolling and revenue generation. But again, in this bill, there's no revenue generation per se. There's no increases for electric vehicle fees or other things like that. All that's going to be dealt with over in the House, which has its own bill that's been stuck in the House Ways and Means Committee. So we expect this to be the vehicle, if we can, to drive this bill through the legislative process this year. They feel confident about that. We'll see what ends up coming out of the Ways and Means Committee. I'm assuming that's where this bill will end up going.
Right, and so far we really haven't seen any meetings scheduled or traction on that legislation, but of course...
Stuck in gear,
neutral, I don't even know if neutral will be. It's in park a little bit, it seems like
trying
right
to learn
now.
manual shifting over
Right, so we'll have to see what happens with the Senate legislation.
Yeah, and again, deal with tolling, public-private partnerships, and some restructuring there, because that has been I've been on the campaign trail, we can talk about election stuff, Mayan. That is something that I'm hearing from Congressman Ralph Norman, Low Country businessman Ron Reddy, a lot of other folks always talk about the roads, but they're really drilling down on DOT and governance structures, which is always funny because DOT has been reformed over the years. Most recently, back in 2016, during the roads bill debate, which raised the gas tax, that was the current structure that put us in this position right now, and now everyone's criticizing this structure when, in fact, again, Republicans were in charge then, they're still in charge now, and these are the same folks criticizing their fellow Republicans. So it's interesting to see the dynamics of the campaign trail also play in the legislative process, too, and we're seeing that, of course, on a variety of topics as well this session.
Absolutely, right. And I will just mention quickly before we get to election-related matters, because obviously that has also dominated this week and will dominate into part of next week as well. The House coming back this week is expected to get on some insurance legislation, not quite as eye-popping perhaps as the THC hemp bill, but of course I think anyone who has insurance companies are going to care about this legislation as well. They are also expected to deal with a boat property tax bill, something the Senate amended, so we'll have to see whether the House agrees to that. And of course, there's a big question mark over what the House does as far as the governor's veto of the name, image, and likeness bill that deals with the revenue sharing. And then over in the Senate, we could see some legislation, the so-called bathroom bill, requiring restroom use at public schools and colleges by biological sex at birth. There are some differences between what the House passed, so again, we'll have to see what the House does with that. And like I mentioned, they're in the calendar clearing mode as they get ready for the budget.
And those are some, important issues, especially a little bit more social issues too that we're seeing play out since the House, all 124 members are up for re-election. We're seeing them, folks file, some folks not file. That filing is open through next Monday at noon. We did see some other folks stay in the race. State Representative Jermaine Johnson, who's a Democrat in the House. There were some rumors last week that he was going to drop out and run for his House seat again. proved not to be true because he failed to run for governor as he announced he would do back in October, and he did that on Monday. We also saw Congresswoman Nancy Mace file, and we expect to see Lieutenant Governor Pamela Abbott file later this week too. And they'll be kind of filling out the whole field there, right there for the governor, the Republican governor's race. And we also possibly might see another Democrat drop into the race as well, file for the race,
Right.
Billy Webster from the other state.
Right, and I still think we still have a little bit of a question mark on what State Senator Josh Kimbrell is doing. He said he was running for governor. We haven't really seen any campaign action. We haven't received any kind of advisory like some gubernatorial campaigns have put out about filing.
Or put out after the fact.
Or put out after the fact, yes. If you want your
We'll show
filings
up.
covered, let us know.
We'll
We'll be
show up.
there. And so, yeah, so that's still in question mark. But
Yeah.
yes, as you mentioned, Billy Webster, the upstate businessman, there's a lot of chatter about him filing this week.
And then, of course, we'll be recapping a lot of that on The Gavel at scetv.org/The Gavel. We'll eventually have a whole list of who's running in the House and who's not running, and also these other constitutional officers, which include the governor and, treasurer, attorney general. That race is also getting pretty spicy, too. I went to a debate last week up in Easley. Pickens County. It was a great time up there, actually seeing all three of those Republican candidates on stage together. And we have more reporting from that at youtube.com/@SCETV News, where a lot of our stuff is, as well as this live broadcast every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I think we're going out, Mayan. Anything else we want to add that we haven't really talked about that's also in the Gavel you guys can check out?
I think the only thing is we'll see tonight whether the Senate is able to hold on to their softball win.
Yes.
That was a big get for the Senate. Last year, the House has really been the clear winner over the last several years.
It's always a fun time to see these lawmakers outside of their suits and dresses, running around the bases over at Founders Park.
That's right.
And it's always for a good cause, of course, but we'll see.
We'll have that coverage tomorrow.
Yeah,
we'll let
have
you
that
know.
in the Gavel, too. Also want to throw out there that the Boeing 787 Dreamliner was named the coolest thing made in South Carolina today by the South Carolina Manufacturers and Commerce. That was by a bunch of votes from folks who it's their March Madness equivalent, trying to find the coolest thing made in South Carolina. And for the 5th annual contest, it was the 787 Dreamliner that's manufactured down there in North Charleston. 9,000 folks working at Boeing down there in North Charleston. Congratulations for you guys. But right now, we're going to jump over to the House. I'm Gavin Jackson with Mayan Schechter at the State House. Have a good Tuesday. And actually, advanced manufacturing is a $30 billion industry in South Carolina.
Oh, who knew?
Sorry, $300 billion.
Mr. White, Mr. White. All right, have all members record your presence. Have all members record your presence. All right. Of all members record your presence. About to close roll call. And members, let's start getting in your seats. We've got a number of introductions. We've got a very special introduction first, so I want everybody, please be in your seats. All right, if all members record your presence. All right, roll call is closed. Polls closed. Clerk, tabulate. There's a quorum present. All right, members. All right, members, in your seats, please. This is a very special introduction. And let's everybody be quiet. All right, everybody in your seats, please. All right, Mr. White in the election delegation. Mr. Caskey's upstairs. Mr. White, you're recognized for a very special presentation. Mr. White.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a real privilege this morning for me to stand before this body to recognize my friend, Bruce Cook. Bruce actually celebrated his 100th birthday last year on September the 23rd. While we were not in session. A resolution honoring him was prepared at that time, but today marks the first opportunity we've had to actually honor him here at the State House. I first met Bruce in 1977 when I first moved to South Carolina and began attending the Northside Baptist Church. Over the years, I came to know him not just as a fellow church member, but as a friend, as a fellow deacon, and as a Sunday school teacher who faithfully devoted his life to the lives of others. Like so many in Lexington County, I also knew Bruce as a small businessman who owned a jewelry store. Every visit to Lexington Jewelers was the same. A warm welcome, a very humble spirit, and a sincere desire to help other people. Bruce is part of what many call the greatest generation. During World War II, he served our country as a ball turret gunner on a B-17 in the Army Air Corps. He flew 35 missions in Europe and returned safely. Thank you, Jesus. His willingness to serve at such a young age helped secure the freedoms we all enjoy today. Even now, at 100 years of age, Bruce continues to live a very active life, spending time with fellow veterans and teaching Sunday school. His life has been defined by faith, humility, service, and devotion to others. In just a few weeks, on April the 9th, Bruce will receive another extraordinary honor. Here in Columbia at Owens Field, he will be awarded a prestigious recognition from the French Foreign Legion, with dignitaries present from all over the United States and France. Bruce, it's been one of the great privileges of my life to call you my friend. On behalf of the South Carolina House of Representatives and the grateful citizens of this state, the grateful citizens of this assembly, and the grateful citizens of the United States of America, I want to thank you. We celebrate a century of life extraordinarily lived. Congratulations, Bruce, and may we all live our lives in such a way that when history looks back on our time, it will say that we were worthy of the freedoms that you gave us. Thank you, Bruce.
Bruce Cook, 100 years old. Thank you for your service and a life well lived. We appreciate you.
At our own on schedule, and we don't need to get them off a schedule. We've got roads and bridges that need to be fixed, and we don't need to slow that up at all. But we can do both. Thankfully, our economy has been better than other states in years past. This is nothing new. In 2022, when the war with Russia and Ukraine was going on, there were several states that suspended their gas tax at that particular time. So certainly believe that this would be appropriate. This would be something that we can give immediate help to our constituents all across the state and help them get through a really rough patch. Happy to answer a question, Mr. President, if that's allowed.
You got 30 seconds. 30 seconds remaining. Senator from Sumter, what purpose do you raise?
Unanimous consent request.
State your request.
Be added as a co-sponsor of the bill.
Without objection, Senator from Sumter, Senator Zell will be a co-sponsor of the bill. Senator from Charleston, Senator Sutton.
Will the senator yield for a question?
Yes, sir.
Yield for a question.
This is a tax cut that will go into immediate effect. Is that correct?
Upon the signature of the governor. Yes, sir. It's a joint resolution.
We like tax cuts around here. Is that right?
Sir?
We like tax cuts around here. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all do. This is obviously something different. This is not a permanent tax cut. This is a temporary suspension of a tax, a much-needed tax, I will add. But this is a temporary suspension of it to try to help folks get through.
I appreciate you pushing this forward because I hear the same. Affordability is huge right now. People are hurting. Gas is through the roof.
Time has expired. Senator
I appreciate it, Senator
Spartanburg, Senator Martin, what purpose do you raise?
Unanimous consent request.
State your request.
With the senator from Calhoun retaining the floor, I ask for an additional 2 minutes.
Is there objection to the additional 2 minutes? Hearing no objection. Well, I guess. Senator from Kershaw.
Senator, yield for a question.
Senator, yield for a question.
Yes, sir.
Senator, yield for a question.
Senator, I was leaving Camden this morning, and I pulled in to fill my 1500 diesel up, one of the most efficient diesels out there in a small truck. Senator, you know about how much it cost me to fill that up this morning?
How many gallons does your truck hold?
It was 21 gallons, and I was lucky to make it to the gas station this morning.
That was above $100.
And I've got my son, you know, he likes to steal my truck instead of driving his vehicle.
That's right. I guarantee you it was over $100.
Yes, sir. It was $118 this morning for me to get back and forth from Columbia this week.
Yes, sir.
And that's a problem.
It is, and again, this is families, this is individuals trying to get to and from work, but it's also our businesses that are trying to make payroll during a very tough time. The last thing I want to do is disrupt this supply chain. We've seen the impacts of a disrupted supply chain. This is again something that's certainly going to help those folks in business, our truckers, our farmers, anybody obviously that are struggling with fuel costs. This would help for a short period of time.
Now, Senator, there's certain areas where the gas is less in parts of the state and more in other parts of the state. Is there something to that, you know?
Yes, sir.
And you know, I was down in Georgia last weekend, and I was, you know, cost of fuel down there was a lot less than it was here in South Carolina. Is there any, you know, any reason that might be the case?
Yeah, I mean, it's my understanding, you know, there's terminals, we get gas brought in. I think the closer you are to the actual terminal, sometimes there's a lower cost. I think there's a whole lot of factors that go into determining that actual price. That's why we use state averages, and state averages says that in South Carolina, we're up over $1 on gas and up over $2 on diesel fuel.
Now, Senator, I might be mistaken in this, but maybe you can correct me. Is the state of Georgia, did they do something like this?
Yes, sir. They just passed last week a 60-day suspension on their fuel tax.
So that might have been why that gas was less in Georgia that day than I was there.
It could have been.
And
Yes,
Senator,
and their tax is higher than ours. I think they're at 33 cents per gallon, and we're right at about 28, 29 cents per gallon right now.
and this tax that we charge for our folks using the fuel, this would be pretty much for everybody in South Carolina. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Anyone that buys gasoline at the pump or diesel
Senator,
fuel.
your additional 2 minutes have expired.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir. Senator from Calhoun.
I'd ask unanimous consent for the bill to go without reference.
Numerous objections if heard. The bill is being referred to Finance Committee. Senator from Newberry, what purpose do you raise, sir?
Unanimous consent to pass out some information.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent request that the senator from Newberry distribute material to the body? Hearing no objection, so ordered. Reading clerk will continue. to read.
The Transportation Committee has reported favorable with amendments on S 812, a bill by Senator Rankin which amends the code relating to the traffic control signal legend so as to require a person riding a bicycle to stop fully at a red light, but to allow the person to proceed when it is safe to do so.
Bill is placed on the calendar.
Medical Affairs Committee reports favorable with amendments on S 894, bill by Senator Alexander. It amends the code relating to the electronic filing and transmission of death certificates so as to allow for a death certificate to be filed on the next business day following the weekend or a holiday.
Placed on the calendar.
Medical Affairs Committee has reported favorable with amendments on S 935, a bill by Senator Tedder. It adds a section to the code so as to require the Department of Public Health to create a pamphlet on rendering seizure first aid and to individuals who have suffered a seizure in the workplace and require the state government entities to post the pamphlet in a conspicuous location.
The bill is placed on the calendar.
Medical Affairs has reported favorable with amendments on S 958, a bill by Senator Verdon, which adds a section to the code to define terms relating to the State Health Facility Licensure Act to provide that patient beds may be used in hallways, corridors, and other means of egress during a certified emergency upon the discretion of an on-site emergency physician.
The bill is placed on the calendar.
Medical Affairs Committee has reported favorable with amendments on H 3931. This bill amends the code relating to approval or denial of permits so as to establish timelines for the department to take action on a permit application.
Bill is placed on the calendar.
The Cherokee County delegation has reported favorable on the initial and reappointment of a Cherokee County magistrate, Mrs. Leslie C. Teague of Gaffney.
Question is confirmation of the Cherokee County magistrate. All in favor would say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The individual is confirmed for the Cherokee County magistrate.
Berkeley County delegation reports favorable reappointment of a Berkeley County magistrate, the Honorable Wilden V. Baggett of Bono.
Senator from Berkeley, Senator Grooms, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Can I be heard on the nomination?
You're recognized on the nomination. Senator from Berkeley.
To the Senate, we have with us a reappointment of a magistrate named Wilden Baggett. And if you would, take a look up in the gallery, and there he sits up there. Wilden, would you please stand, Judge Baggett? Judge Baggett is one of the finest magistrates I believe we have in our state. Bennett began a career with the Berkeley County Sheriff's Office and then decided to take the call to become a magistrate. He's been appointed and reappointed, and he's up for reappointment right now. There are some in this body who think that magistrates should only be attorneys, and I can respect that. And then there are others who, like me, who believe we should have a good mixture of attorneys and non-attorneys, particularly someone who understands the law and has been on both sides of cases, as on the side of a sheriff's deputy and now on the side of a magistrate. He's also one of the state's premier experts on the lie detector test. So he knows if you're lying, all right? And at this time, Mr. President, I'd like to ask that we have a vote of confirmation for Magistrate Baggett.
Thank you, Senator from Berkeley. Pending question is confirmation, the Berkeley County Magistrate, Honorable Wilden Baggett. All those in favor would say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. You're reconfirmed. Congratulations, sir. Senator from Spartanburg, Senator Martin, what purpose do you rise, sir?
See if the senator from Berkeley would yield for a question.
Senator yield for question.
Senator yields.
Senator yields.
Will he be providing us with the results of your test?
Received his information.
I'm not sure how to answer that.
Senator from Aiken is recognized on that point. The Senator from Aiken will be recognized for introduction.
Of the Senate, we are joined today by the South Carolina Athletic Trainers Association, their leadership and members of their association. They are from across the state, and they are with us today in the gallery. I think they're standing toward the back. Raise your hands. I see them back there. But these professionals are often the first people that our children may see at their school when they are injured in a sports event or dealing with an illness. In addition, they are a critical part of the healthcare system in South Carolina, as well as because they are strategically employed in the manufacturing sector, treating workers and getting them safely back to work. Today is the annual softball game with the House. I hope we don't need their services tonight, but let's just give them all a great big welcome to the South Carolina Senate. Please.
Delighted to have you visiting with us today. Welcome to the Senate. Thank you for your service. Thank you, Senator from Macon. Senator from York, Senator Johnson, what purpose do you rise, sir?
To make an introduction.
You're recognized for the purposes of an introduction. Senator from York, Senator Johnson, joined by the Senator from York, Senator Clymer.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator
Members of the Senate, today we have the Center for Education Recruitment, Retention, and Advancement. Sarah with us in the balcony. If y'all would please stand. Or y'all please stand. 40 years, Sarah has been dedicated to keeping our teachers in the classroom and recruiting new teachers, whether it's teacher cadet in our high schools or the teaching fellows in some of our colleges. Sarah is firmly committed to making sure that the next generation of teachers are qualified and have support, but also that once they get there, they're given the support so they'll want to stay. And that is extremely important, as we all know. I want to thank you all for all you have done over the last 40 years. We look forward to much more, much bigger things. And I just asked the Senate, with the reading clerk, I believe we have a resolution on the desk.
Publish the title of the resolution.
This is a Senate resolution to honor the Center for Educator, Recruitment, Retention, and Advancement, CERA, for its 40th anniversary, to congratulate the Center for its decades of dedication to advancing education through recruitment and retention efforts, and to recognize March 24th, 2026 as CERA Recognition and Celebration Day.
The resolution is unanimously been adopted by the Senate. The Senator from York.
Thank you, Mr. President. Everyone, I'd ask that you please stand and welcome Sarah to the State House.
Welcome to the State House, to the State Senate.
Come outside. Want to do a picture on the front steps?
Senator Henry, Senator Johnson.
You want to come do a picture on the front steps?
Thank you, Senators. Delighted to have y'all with us. Senator from we continue to be in the box. I'd ask the reading clerk to continue to read.
The Berkeley County delegation has reported favorable on a reappointment of a Berkeley County magistrate, the Honorable Yvonne Jenkins Whaley of Pineville.
Question is, Senator from, question is confirmation of the Berkeley County magistrate. All those in favor would please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The individual is confirmed for Berkeley County magistrate. Reading clerk will continue to please read.
The Dillon County delegation has reported favorable on the reappointment of 3 Dillon County magistrates, the Honorable Andrew V. Bethay of Latta, the Honorable Anthony B. Britt, Jr. of Lakeview, and the Honorable Lutheran J. Williams of Latta.
Question is confirmation of the question is confirmation of the 3 Dillon County magistrates. All those in favor would please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The individuals are confirmed for Dillon County magistrate. Please continue to read.
The Lancaster County delegation has reported favorable on the reappointment and subsequent reappointment of a Lancaster County magistrate, the Honorable Frederick A. Thomas of Lancaster.
The question is confirmation of the Lancaster County magistrate. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The individual is confirmed for Lancaster County magistrate. I'm informed that the desk is clear. Are there any requests for local bills? Any request for local bills? Hearing none, that takes us to statewide third reading, page 4, middle of the page. S. 823 by the Senator from Florence, Senator Rickenbach, Senator from Orangeburg, Senator Hutto, and others. We have an amendment on the desk. It's a third reading amendment. Publish the author of the amendment, please, sir. Or the amendment. Okay.
The amendment is by Senator Garrett. It amends the bill in Section 1. It strikes Section 63.7, 2630, subsection B, and inserts subsection B upon motion of any party except for a person who is the subject of the termination of parental rights actions or at the discretion of the court when the court enters an
Senator
order.
from Edgefield, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Mr. President, I don't see the senator from Greenwood in the chamber. I didn't know if anybody else was planning to handle this amendment for him. I don't see anybody moving in that direction. The senator from Greenville going to handle the amendment, maybe?
Senator from Greenville, Senator Elliott, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator from Greenwood's amendment would just change shall to may to give the court more discretion. So I think that's the extent of it.
Question is, the allowing amendments on third requires a 3/5 vote. Is there objection to taking up the amendment on third reading? Hearing no objection, so order. So the before us is the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor would please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. There are no further amendments. I rule that's a substantive amendment that will require a roll call. Senator from Pickens, what purpose do you rise? State your inquiry.
Does the senator from Greenwood have leave for the day? I'll make a unanimous consent request to give leave to the senator from Greenwood for the day.
Without objection, Senator from Greenwood, Senator Garrett will have leave for the day if there's no objection. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Roll call. S. 823 on the middle of page 4. Clerk has rung the bell. The reading clerk will please call the roll of the Senate for third reading.
Mr. Adams. Aye. Mr. Alexander. Aye. Mr. Allen. Aye. Mr. Bennett. Aye. Mr. Blackman. Aye. Mr. Bright. Aye. Mr. Campson. Not voting, Mr. Cash. Aye. Mr. Chaplin. Aye. Mr. Clymer. Not voting, Mr. Corbin. Aye. Mr. Cromer. Aye. Mr. Davis. Aye. Mrs. Devine votes aye. Mr. Elliott. Aye. Mr. Fernandez. Aye. Mr. Gambrell. Aye. Mr. Garrett has leave. Mr. Goldfinch. Not voting, Mr. Graham. Aye. Mr. Grooms. Not voting, Mr. Hembry. Votes aye. Mr. Hutto. Aye. Mr. Jackson. Aye. Mr. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Kennedy has leave. Mr. Kimbrell. Aye. Mr. Lieber. Aye. Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin votes aye. Mr. Massey. Aye. Mrs. Matthews. Aye. Mr. Ott. Aye. Mr. Peeler. Aye. Mr. Rankin. Not voting Mr. Rickabaugh votes aye. Mr. Rice. Aye. Mr. Sabb. Not voting Mr. Stubbs. Aye. Mr. Sutton. Aye. Mr. Tedder. Aye. Mr. Turner. Aye. Mr. Verdon. Aye. Mr. Walker votes aye. Mr. Williams. Not voting Mr. Young. Aye. Mr. Zell. Aye.
Of all senators voted, Senator from York, Senator Clymer, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Purposes of unanimous consent request.
State your request.
Ask unanimous consent for leave for the senator from Georgetown, Senator Goldfinch, and further unanimous consent request, Mr. President.
State your request.
Just leave for the senator from Charleston, Senator Campson.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent requests? One for the senator from Charleston, Senator Campson, one from the senator from Georgetown, Senator Goldfinch. Hearing no objection, so ordered, and the Senator Clymer votes aye. Senator Rankin votes aye. Senator Williams votes aye. Further members wishing to record your vote for third reading of S. 823. Further members. The polls are closed. The clerk will tabulate. By a vote of 40-0, S. 823 receives a third reading of the Senate. Senator from Greenville, Senator Turner, what purpose do you rise, sir? You're recognized for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I am pleased to introduce members of the Independent Insurance Agents and Brokers of South Carolina that are here for their Young Agents Legislative Day. This group of current and future leaders in the insurance industry play a vital role in serving businesses, families, and communities across our state. These agents often offer trusted advice, risk management, and consumer advocacy to help ensure South Carolinians have access to the protection they need. We appreciate their dedication and engagement with us today. Please join me in welcoming their group of young agents to the State House this afternoon. If you'll please rise.
Please stand to be recognized. We're delighted to have you visiting with us. Enjoy your time here at the State Senate. Welcome. Thank you, Senator from Greenville. Senator from Anderson, Senator Gambrell, what purpose do you rise, sir? For introduction. You're recognized for introductions.
All right, folks, we're going to try this one again. They're actually in the balcony this time. I will have the Southeastern Propane Alliance with us today. I'd ask for all the folks that are here to please stand and be recognized. The Southeastern Propane Association represents South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. They contribute over $4 billion to those three states' economy, and they also responsible for 687 million gallons of propane to go through. Folks that are here with us today, and you're free to join me if I recognize your county. Reagan Bonnet from Anderson, Stringer Oil and Gas. Hey, Reagan. Eric Taylor from Irmo with Blossman Gas. James Harris from Edgefield with Blossman Gas. Richard O'Shield from Batesburg, Leesville, Ridge LP Gas. Preston Lee, Florence, Timmonsville area, Battle LP Gas. Quincy Atkins, Conway, Myrtle Beach, Battle LP Gas. Stephanie Bolding from Landrum with Prince LP Gas, Palmer Freeman from Columbia for Edisto Gas. And we also have John Jessup from Raleigh, North Carolina, who's the president and CEO of the Southeastern Propane Alliance. Please help me welcome these folks to the Senate.
Welcome to the Senate. Thank you for your service in the communities across our great state. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I heard that already.
I was going to say deja vu all over again.
Thank you, Senator from Anderson. Again. Senator from Edgefield, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Mr. President, where are we on the calendar?
We have just completed third reading uncontested.
Mr. President?
Senator from Edgefield.
Mr. President, I move to vary the order of the day and proceed to the statewide contested third reading calendar.
That's a motion. A motion. All those in favor would say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Motion carries. That takes us to statewide third reading contested. Reading clerk will publish H3305.
This is a bill which adds an article to the code so as to establish the South Carolina Public.
Edgefield, what purpose do you ask?
Move to carry over.
Motion is to carry over H3305. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The bill's carried over. Continuing on page 3, S26.
Mr. President.
Senator from Edgefield, what purpose do you rise?
Move to carry over.
Motion is to carry over S26. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We now go to page 4, top of the page, S808.
Mr. President.
Senator from Edgefield, what purpose do you rise?
Move to carry over.
Motion is to carry over S808. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Now we go to bottom of the page 4, S922. Senator from Edgefield and others.
Amendment on the desk.
On the desk. Reading clerk will publish. Well, so this is an amendment on third reading. 3/5 vote would be required. Publish the author of the amendment, please.
The amendment is by Senator Verdon.
Senator from Lawrence, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Mr. President, to explain the amendment.
You're recognized to briefly explain the amendment before we consider taking up the amendment. State your inquiry. Senator from Colleton, what purpose do you rise?
What bill are we on?
We're at the bottom of page 4, S922.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good to see you. Senator from Lawrence, brief explanation of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I hope you will afford the Senate the opportunity to debate this amendment. This amendment relates specifically to the Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners and their inclusion in the boards and commissions to be removed from senatorial advice and consent. My amendment will seek to maintain the senatorial advice and consent for the Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners.
Is there objection to consideration of the amendment on third? Objection is heard. Requires a 3/5 vote. All of those in favor of taking up the amendment would please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. I was already in the thing. Motion is adopted. I'm sorry, the point comes too late. Question is the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor of the adoption of the amendment would say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. No further amendments, so the question is third reading of S 922. Senator from Orangeburg, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Can we get an explanation now?
Explanation has been requested. Senator from Edgefield is recognized for explanation.
Mr. President, the bill seeks to provide for the state election commission members to be nominated by the governor subject to advice and consent of the Senate. It would also make some clarifications on interim appointments to address the Supreme Court decision from a few years back. But it specifically would provide that the interim appointment must be made during the time in which it occurred, during the time that the vacancy occurred. And it would also provide that if the Senate rejects an interim nominee, that the position would be vacant and that person could not be reappointed. It would also provide that the governing authority for each executive branch department serves coterminous with the governor. And then it would remove, I think we're now at 34 positions that require advice and consent. It would remove the advice and consent requirement for those positions such that the governor could make those appointments without advice and consent. However, the amendment, and the senator from Kershaw brought this up during the subcommittee meeting. We still need to make sure that we get notified of those appointments being made. So it would just require that the governor, upon making that known to the Secretary of State, would also simultaneously notify the clerk of the Senate so that we would have notification of those appointments being made.
Senator from Orangeburg, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Senator, would you?
Senator Yield for question.
I will.
Senator Yields for questions.
Senator, you used the terminology of Senate rejects. What constitutes the Senate rejecting somebody?
Well, not being confirmed. If the Senate takes a vote and
the full Senate.
I think it would be the full Senate.
Okay.
Right. For the purposes of that provision, I think that's exactly right. Yeah, it would require the full Senate to reject.
Senator from Kershaw, what purpose do you rise?
When the senator's done, I'd like to speak on the amendment, or the bill, excuse me.
You finished? I'm going to recognize the senator from Kershaw. Just what purpose do you rise? What purpose? Why he's coming to the podium? What purpose do you rise?
I wanted to see if the senator from Edgefield could answer a quick question before this speaker comes forward. Just a quick question.
Unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent to be permitted to ask the senator from Edgefield a quick question. Wow.
With the senator from Kershaw.
Yes, all that stuff.
Holding the floor. Senator from Spartanburg, Senator Martin.
I temporarily objected because I didn't want the senator to lose the floor. If it be reworded to include him retaining the floor, then I'll not object.
I did.
Yeah, she did. So is there objection to the unanimous consent request that the senator, with the senator from Kershaw retaining the floor, the senator from Collington has the ability to ask a question of the senator from Edgefield? Is there objection to that unanimous consent request? Hearing no objection, so ordered.
Senator, the question
Senator from Edgefield is recognized to respond
Senator,
to.
thank you for taking my question. The question I wanted to ask was, as it relates to interim appointments, we've had this issue before. Does this bill, as it is presently written, does it apply going forward, or is it retroactive to any present and pending interim appointments by our governor?
Mr. President, the legislation would apply prospectively. So there are, I think, to my knowledge, there would just be one person who's serving in an interim capacity right now.
Would that be Dr. Simmer?
No, Dr. Simmer's not serving in an interim capacity. The only person that I know of who's serving in an interim capacity would be the child advocate.
Okay.
And then there are a couple that were done for, there's one for Lander University and one for the University of South Carolina. Those are the only interims that I know of that are serving right now.
And
So it
those-
would not apply to any of them.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you very much.
Senator from Kershaw has been recognized. Speak on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues. The reason that I have my name on this bill is that the fact that in all of our testimony and all of our time working on this committee, we had a lot of great discussion. As the senator said, had some good ideas from across the aisle. And then there was an amendment made last week that I don't think goes exactly the opposite of exactly what we're trying to do, which is to make sure that the advice and consent of the Senate is heard to our governor. And again, this appointment was done with the restructuring of the agency, and they were put in that place to serve out the term with the governor. The governor will be leaving us in January. There'll be a new governor in South Carolina, and there are a few folks that might be in this audience that might be that person. And I think that the idea of this bill was to do exactly that, to make it very clear how advice and consent works with certain committees. And a lot of time and energy went into this bill. And then yesterday or last week, Tuesday, there was an amendment to put on to remove someone by office by the end of the session. And I don't think that is the purpose of the bill. And I think that is why I'm speaking today and why I put my name on the bill. And it looks like it's got moved today.
Senator from Charleston, Senator Tedder, what purpose do you ask?
See if the senator will yield for a few questions.
Senator, yield for questions.
I will yield.
Senator, yields for questions.
Thank you, Senator, for bringing that to our attention. Did you know, I've learned about that too, that although in the questioning with the senator from Orangeburg, when he asked about it, the answer or the description of the bill was so that we can ensure that when the full Senate rejects a candidate, that is adhered to, and I would assume that, would the full Senate not include all 46 senators?
Senator, I thought there were 46 of us, but obviously this committee or the subcommittee must have more jurisdiction.
Okay, and did you know that although the full Senate did not agree to remove this individual, which is why they have not been removed, by the way, there was an attempt to put through an amendment last week, I believe, that was apparently celebrated on social media before it even passed third reading. But did you know that that is a concern that some of us have, particularly when it's supposed to be the full Senate, and I believe a question was just asked about if this would affect a specific individual, and now it appears that there was an amendment actually to do just that. Are you aware of that amendment?
Senator, I think that's exactly to the point, that this is specific to a certain person that was approved by the body at the time through the governor's restructuring of the state, moving one part of DHEC, separating it out. This person is the longest serving director in that position in the state. That they have served in this capacity for, I believe, 5-6 years, and actually, to be even more precise, before, this was after COVID. This person came on, and so we're trying to attach him to some policies that the state set that we probably approved to be served out through the state of South Carolina. This person wasn't here, didn't work here, and is being blamed for it.
Yeah, and also, did you know it's quite clever how because some would argue, well, the amendment was put forward, it wasn't debated. There were a lot of people, unfortunately, out of the chamber at that particular time. But did you know that my question would have been, and is now, because I hadn't read the language of the amendment, but if this goes into effect, what happens? Do you know what happens then? Is there an automatic, we pick another person, or what happens? Is that just vacated and nobody serves in that role?
Well, Senator, I think that's exactly the problem that we've just talked about. So now the governor, if this bill were to pass with this amendment on there, exactly what we are concerned about is that a new appointment would have to be appointed by the governor. Then it would have to be confirmed by the Senate again. Well, guess what happens when the legislation ends at the end of the session? We don't come back, right?
That's right, yeah.
And so in this bill, it says when the session ends, there's a date specific, but that the session would end and that person would be removed from the position. Now, the governor, in my understanding, Senator Massey has said that the governor has been working on a new appointment and is unable to find someone who's qualified to serve South Carolina in this capacity.
Well,
and that's a big deal. And so you're telling me if the governor's heard the census of the Senate that we don't want this person, well, then the governor would know to find someone else. I believe he's having a hard time.
Well, did you know that I served on this committee, and I will tell you, if I had to guess, I would imagine that nobody wants to serve because the way that Dr. Simmer was treated, I mean, the way that we would treat a professional, by the way, someone who is serving this state, our citizens, at the call of the governor, and to the way he was treated, the way he was disrespected in committee, the way that they touted him, it was just so embarrassing. And so I don't blame anybody for not wanting that job. When you see that, well, if the governor appoints me and then I get advice and consent from the Senate, but because maybe a couple of people don't like their personal opinions, which, by the way, contradict medical science, which is what he went to school for anyway, now I get attacked, my family gets, I mean, in committee, did you know that there was conversation about his family being threatened, people going to his house? I mean, this is bad. I would imagine why nobody wants to do this, but yet we're going to vacate the one person that does
absolutely
good
should
job.
be protected by the public. And again, I think him making decisions for his personal health as well as the personal health of his family and household somehow has become this lightning rod for why we can't take care of people and our appointed people in South Carolina. They are serving at the will of the Senate as well as the will of the governor, and they are serving us in a very fine fashion because, listen, this person has been there, the longest serving person in this agency in history.
And did you?
And now we're saying that because of some policies that he didn't put in place, we're going to remove him at the end of the session, and then we're going to leave it open. We're going to leave this position open for 4 or 5 months until the new governor's elected. By all means, the new governor should give us someone else to advice and consent on. This bill had nothing to do with this, and then now it does, and that's why I'm against it. And I think that that's very important that we spent all of this time, all of this energy in committee, talking about the agencies that needed to be moved, which appointments need to be where, how they're done, and it was great discussion, and I appreciate that discussion. Well, and then I come to find out now we're going to remove somebody, was never part of the discussion.
Right. That was not a part of the committee process, as I understand it. And in fact, quite frankly, I think it was alerted because a member or two celebrated too early, I guess, on social media, but about firing somebody who clearly the governor appointed and the Senate gave advice and consent on. So thanks to those people who highlighted this. But again, I just want to ask, and did you know in the committee process, when I was sitting there, Dr. Simmer took it very well. I mean, for many people, and it just goes to show the kind of man he is, the character he has, to sit there. Not many men in this body can sit there with people pestering them, threatening their family, just demeaning them, almost as if they were not a human being. That is not what the Senate stands for, one, but it appears that in certain situations, we'll stoop to those levels. But that was very concerning as a member of the Medical Affairs Committee and having to sit through that, to see somebody just be taunted like that. And to your point, you mentioned that he made personal decisions. Did you know that he was being picked on and defiled essentially for simply choosing to protect his health by wearing a mask? I mean, it's just interesting. And then on the flip side, did you know we have some people who, personal freedom, their right to not wear a mask and to, advance the measles everywhere, that's fine, that's their right. But then when somebody chooses to protect themselves, I guess it depends on where you are policy-wise, whether or not you can have that right to choose.
Well, Senator, and one of the things that just came up when you were talking, I mentioned that he was a professional in his field, right? He is a trained, knows how this does. The folks that were in this position before, they never served more than about a year.
Right.
Every year there was somebody new trying to take care of the state of South Carolina, all of the folks in South Carolina. This is the first person that we've had that has stayed more than 2 years. And I think there's something to that when you have a professional in that position. And they were serving in that great capacity.
Well, and in that capacity, did you know during committee, just to talk about some of the facts, since everybody wasn't there, it was asked and answered plenty of times. A lot of things, he was given directives from the people who he served at the pleasure of. And so again, nobody's here to oust the governor or anybody else, but to use him as an example when he was simply following direction based on what the administration at the time was doing, based on the state and federal, based on the scientific data at that time, based on everything that was happening at that time.
Senator, consulting with doctors, the professionals, talking to those fields and listening to what was going on, not only here in South Carolina, but I mean, trying to make sure that he had the facts and the medical information to back up what he was trying or the governor was telling him to do, and he wanted to make sure that South Carolina was safe. And I think that's exactly what he did, and most folks don't understand how important that kind of role is when you have a professional in it. It was not a political appointment, which is sometimes what these directors are.
Right. It was not, and having served on that committee, there was a lot of testimony to that fact. In fact, there were both senators on both sides of the aisle, did you know, that actually supported Dr. Simmer and could defend that he was doing what he could at the time with the information that he had and with the directives from the people that he was serving at the pleasure of at that time.
And Senator, I think, the other part that I mentioned earlier is just how this is when the agencies split apart, things were different, things were trying to figure out the different agencies. And I think when you have somebody consistently in a position to be able to guide the team through it, I think that it is clear that he was able to guide us through the challenges of the agency change, regardless of what was going on the national level, that again, he came here after those facts and after those decisions were made, and he was here for the separation of that agency, and I think for that work is a big deal. And we've got other agencies, heads that have been here that long that were helping to separate those parts, and they played out well for us too. And I think we would be jeopardizing South Carolina to remove somebody by the end of session and to have a non-appointment until the next governor comes in place. And to me, that is a health concern.
Yeah.
When we already have big health concerns here with measles and other things, and I'm sure some other folks have questions about measles specifically, but if we're not going to protect South Carolinians against the health concerns across our state, that's what our job is.
Yeah,
and we have a professional doing it.
And we don't know who the next governor will be. I mean,
we don't.
There's another whole host of questions there. And just to my last point, I appreciate you taking the well and bringing this up for the people in the public who watch us on ETV and those who pay attention to the news. Did you know just there are people who support Dr. Simmer. There are people who would opine that we are sending the wrong message when we as a legislative body will change slide amendments and bills that are very meaningful to try to strip someone of their title for a political statement, who, by the way, was not the will of the full Senate, all 46 senators, to be removed.
Senator, that's exactly right, and I think that's exactly why this had to be brought out today, because otherwise we would have gone through with a vote that does not do exactly what the bill is for. The bill is allowing the Senate for advice and consent. We have the ability to do that with these appointments. We're moving some of these to make it streamlined. We're making government function better. When we have this change of the bill, this amendment just goes to the opposite of that, and I think it will be very disappointing if this body moves forward with this amendment, because it does exactly the purpose of the opposite of what we're trying to do, which is trying to make sure agencies are appointed correctly. The advice and consent of the full Senate, as the bill lays out, would be considered for all of these appointments with the new governor coming in. If the governor has a new appointment for this position, then by all means, I think this body would take that up and listen to that. But to have a non-director for the next 6 months, if that's what we choose to do with a bill like this, doesn't make sense.
Senator from Richland, Senator Devine, what purpose do you rise?
See if the senator yield for a couple questions.
Senator, yield for questions.
Yield for questions.
Senator yields.
Senator from Kershaw, as I understand, when we first started discussing this bill, we had a few interim appointments at that time. Is that correct?
That is correct. There were a couple of interim appointments.
And one of those interim appointments actually has since been confirmed. Is that correct?
This body did take a vote on those other interim appointments, and they have been appointed by the Senate with the advice and consent of the bill.
And so, Senator, do you recall that, for instance, one of the appointments several people had a concern about that appointment because the person that was appointed in this interim capacity is very well qualified, and that is why he has since been confirmed. Is that correct?
Absolutely. This body, as always, is very deliberate in what they talk about. Make sure that we're putting the right people in the right place on all of these committees, and the directors. And I think that's exactly what this body did. We said we have a super qualified person. We do not want to risk South Carolina by not having a qualified person serve as another director. And that's exactly what the Senate did. We went through all the committees, we had all the conversations, and we had a vote of the full Senate in saying this is what South Carolina needs. We have a overqualified, I believe, is some of the words that some of our senators use. And I think that's the facts. You're exactly right. We had interim appointments, and we have subsequently appointed them, and we did it last session as well.
So, Senator, this bill is really about the policy, or the reason the bill went forward, even though there were certain appointments that were out there that people had a concern about the process and not particularly the person. Is that correct?
That's right, and I think that's the whole reason this bill came up. I think that the body took a lot of energy and time to make sure it was right. We talked about having in this bill to make sure that every committee that's appointed, who's appointed, how they're appointed, if it's the governor, whether it's us, whether it's the House, so that people know who is serving on these boards. And I think that was the whole purpose of this legislation, to make it very clear to the next governor, the current governor, and future governors that the Senate, on advice and consent of some committees we will have, and in some committees we won't. And some of them are removed in this legislation, and that's exactly what it did until Tuesday of last week when we added something that goes completely opposite of what we've been talking about.
So, as envisioned and as originally written, this bill was about the process. Regardless of who the governor was, regardless of who members of the Senate were, if you have a bill, should the bill be about a process or should it be about a person?
Senator, this is exactly about the process, and that's why the bill was brought up. It was brought up this session because we wanted to clarify the process to make sure that we recommend folks, or the governor recommends folks to committees and director positions, that the advice and consent is clear. We wanted to make it clear for anyone that's going to serve as governor of South Carolina that the Senate wants advice consent on these committees, not on those, and this is why. And we wanted to make it clear because obviously before this time, it was unclear, or at least for a few.
So if the bill that was not amended would be strictly about the process, the amendment, as I understand, or as the bill has been amended, is about a person.
Absolutely, and that's exactly why I put my name on this bill, because that amendment ruins this bill. It ruins the bill. It ruins the process of the Senate. It goes against what we've been talking about. It's against what I understand to be the Senate, that we work together to make sure that we go through the process, the entire process, and we have that vote up or down, whatever that vote is, we have to do it. And I think that's exactly what this bill did. And until that amendment, I have been every committee meeting, I've been every meeting about it because it matters that much. And until that amendment, this is exactly why we need to stand up today.
And so if we start making bills about people, personalities, is that a good practice, or does that?
Definitely not good governance, that's for certain.
Let me shift focus a little bit. So you were talking a little bit about the Department of Public Health and what we are dealing with right this second. If this bill as amended passes, to the point you made with the senator from Charleston, our current director would be removed.
According to the amendment, they would be removed at the end of the session, I believe, and it might be in July or something, but it's right after session.
And is our current governor, is he now, quote, a lame duck governor?
So my understanding that the governor gets to serve until January when the new governor gets sworn in, and so I don't think any of us want to leave any position, any seat, because our policies, our process don't allow these seats to remain open, because this is for the safety of South Carolina. And so if we're going to do that for this person, because that's what this is about, it's about one person, not the process about how we fill vacancies, whether they're serving on a committee or whether they're a director. There is a process. We have a lot of rules to make sure that we follow the process. And this amendment is not process. This is an attack.
And so, Senator, if you were applying for a job, would you take a job offered to you by someone that's hired that will be gone in 6 months?
Senator, I don't think there are many folks that would take a job if they watched any of the testimony or of that committee hearing that the senator from Charleston was talking about earlier. I think they'd have a hard time desiring to serve the state of South Carolina, much less if the governor could find someone. And so I think it is concerning, but I don't know too many people that are willing to serve for a 6-month stint just for 6 months. I just don't see that possible.
And based on the way this amendment reads, the position would be vacated once we are no longer in session. Would that be correct?
That is correct, and that's where that date came in, yes.
And so, but the bill itself talks about how the process of an interim appointment when the Senate is not in session.
That's exactly right. And so that was the whole purpose of this, was to make sure that the governor, future governors, and history would be known for making sure that we have advice and consent on the appointments of the governor. And so this very removal would cause the exact issue that we're talking about and trying to pass in this bill. It would be the exact same problem we're going to set ourselves up if the governor could find somebody to serve for 6 months. But my understanding, the governor's been looking for 2 years for a possible replacement. 2 years, and I don't know that anybody has any names, but if they do, I'd love to hear them from the governor.
And Senator, just lastly, thinking about the way our public health department is run and the issues that we have in South Carolina regarding health disparities, advice. We just are, I guess, coming out of a flu season, which, did you know, Senator, that I made it through the whole season, and last week my 9-year-old was diagnosed with the flu.
Senator, anytime you have young children, I think all of the sickness finds its way into our house. I know it does in mine, even if, and I know what that feels like.
And so as we go into a time when the Senate is not in session, we potentially will have some lack of leadership at our state's public health department for at least 7 months. But as the new governor comes in January, it would take some time for a new governor, whoever that is, to find someone to be appointed and
Absolutely.
potentially get someone appointed before we're out again in May of 2027.
Absolutely, and obviously, in South Carolina, election cycles, they come in a June, a primary, and then we have an election in November, and usually right after that election, we know who won. And they don't get sworn in until January, so there could potentially be no one in this position until January, February, if the new governor could find somebody that is qualified that this body would approve. And that is a concern. And so we're going to leave it unfilled until that happens, and that's the point. I mean, we're talking about removing somebody who is qualified to be in this position, is the longest-serving person in this role, and we're going to remove them for politics.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Definitely not the governor. Appreciate that.
Before I go to the Senator, I'm going to go to the Senator from Calhoun.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ask unanimous consent with the Senator from Kershaw retaining the podium for a quick introduction.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent request that with the Senator from Kershaw retaining the floor, the Senator from Calhoun be recognized for introduction? Here, no objection. Senator from Calhoun is recognized for the purposes of introduction.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, glad to give my friend from Kershaw a little breather and catch a cup of water. While I introduce some friends from Prisma Health, I would ask them all to please stand. This week is South Carolina Hospital Association's Hospital of the Week, and it's Prisma Health. So as you all know, I think Prisma touches almost every part of the state of South Carolina, 2/3 actually of South Carolina, from the upstates to the Midlands. Prisma employs more than 30,000 team members. They operate 19 acute and specialty hospitals, and they have an economic impact in our state of more than $9 billion annually. Love for you all to take a look up in the balcony as we welcome Prisma Health's Midlands leadership team with us today. We have Ms. Jennifer Montgomery, the Midlands Market CEO. We have Dr. Patrice Weiss, Chief Medical Officer of the Medical Group in the Midlands and Chief Academics Officer. And we have Mr. Anthony Jackson, the Senior Vice President of Service Lines and Chief Community Officer. As y'all know, this team oversees the Richland Baptist and Park Ridge hospitals here in the Columbia area and the Toomey Hospital in Sumter. And I think one of the big feathers in the cap is that these facilities include the region's only level 1 trauma center and the region's only children's hospital, both located here on the Richland campus. Prisma's strategy to improve the health of communities they serve includes a dedicated community health team, which works every day to move the needle on heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, and sickle cells in the Midlands region. So it's just my honor today to be able to introduce these fine folks to y'all and to thank Prisma Health for being with us and for your longstanding commitment to our Midlands communities. Thank y'all.
Welcome to the Senate. We're delighted to have you visiting with us today, and thank you for your service to the citizens of our communities. Thank you. Welcome. Senator from Kershaw retains the floor. Senator from Charleston, Senator Lever, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Senator, we yield for some questions.
Senator, yield for questions.
Happy to
Senator
yield.
yields
Yes,
for
sir.
questions.
Thank you. On the day that this amendment passed, it passed unanimously as a voice vote. Were you here that day?
No, sir, I was not.
Did anybody object on that day?
Senator, they used the rule that for the previous vote, half the Senate wasn't even in the chamber because I was watching online.
Yeah, but they would have been, any senator was accorded the ability to object to the rule being applied. They could have recorded a no vote, right?
And I objected.
Well, you weren't there that day, but anyway.
And like I said, I was watching it and I saw it, and that's when I objected.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out the disconnect because everybody's really passionate today, but it seemed like the voice vote that happened, no one even went to the clerk to register a no vote. They could have done that even after the vote.
Senator, I think it's very important to know that that roll call vote gets done oftentimes on a procedural vote, that this was procedural until your amendment. And again, Senator, I believe that that is exactly why I had no problem with the bill. No one, as far as the bill, had a problem with the bill originally. And now all of a sudden we do, and I do. And there are others in this body that have a problem with the bill, and that's exactly why me, just like any other senator, can put their name on a bill.
Yes, I'm speaking directly about the amendment vote itself, which was unanimous without a no being recorded. But anyway, we're talking about Dr. Simmer here. Did you know that Dr. Simmer said in committee that he was against any police officer or teacher or nurse being fired for not taking the vaccine?
Senator, did you know that his job is to protect the health and the wellness of South Carolinians?
You get to ask me questions?
I made a statement.
But seriously, did you know that he said he was against anybody being terminated for taking the vaccine?
Senator, I'm not aware of what he said as far as that specific issue, but I also understand how he was treated as a human being at that committee, and maybe I think some of that needs to be known as well.
So you're saying you didn't watch the committee?
No, I did watch the committee. What I said is I don't remember that particular part.
So he did say that. He did indeed say that he was against any fireman or police officer or nurse being terminated from their job for not taking the vaccine. But he was aware in Charleston County that many police, firemen, teachers, and nurses were being terminated from their jobs. And as the head of the health department, he did not speak up and voice his opposition to that. He said nothing. Did you know that?
Senator, I'm not certain what this has to do with your asking for him to be removed with your amendment.
Well, we talked about Dr. Simmer and how he was treated, so I just want to just sort of rehash a little bit about that committee since you don't remember a lot that came of that committee.
Well, Senator, I'm not on the committee, so let's be very clear.
Did you know that he also wanted to offer free beer at the ballparks if people would come up and take a vaccine?
Well, Senator, I believe there'll be free beer this afternoon at a baseball game, too.
I don't think we're going to get any vaccines. Did you also know that he wanted to authorize mobile units going through neighborhoods and giving vaccines to people?
Senator, are you aware that in Sumter County and Kershaw County and Lee County, having a mobile unit around and providing health care for our communities really does matter?
Did you also know that when Dr. Fauci would authorize a new set of children as young as 2 years old to get a vaccine, that Dr. Simmer was Johnny on the spot, and he was ready for all these kids to get those shots? Did you know that?
Senator, did you know that Dr. Fauci is United States and not in the South Carolina Senate, nor do we have a say in what Dr. Fauci does? And I think there's a great opportunity this week and next if you want to file to run for Senate, and then you can deal with Dr. Fauci there.
So what we're doing is we're really expressing a lot of passion today about Dr. Simmer being ill-treated, and the fact that that would mean that people can't or will not be willing to take this job. And I need to sort of push back on that a little bit. You know, Secretary Marco Rubio has lots of jobs in the federal government. You know, he fills in a lot. And do you think that it would be possible the governor could get somebody ahead of a different agency to sort of fill in on this because the Senate has expressed its will that they do not want Dr. Simmer in this position?
Well, Senator, I think the governor has heard from some of the Senate about the will of the Senate about this particular person. But also, you notice that the governor hasn't brought us any other names to fill this position. So I think it's very telling that it is hard to find someone who is qualified that can represent our rural areas in healthcare, that stand up for our nurses, that stand up for our doctors, that stand up for our communities in rural areas that don't have access to healthcare. Because this is a bigger issue than what you're talking about. It's a bigger issue because healthcare is needed across the state of South Carolina. And if we don't have these mobile units that you speak so against, that we can't have these serving our communities, that's exactly what we need in South Carolina. We need folks to have access to health care. We need people to have access to the proper health care, because that is where we will win in South Carolina, by having a healthy population.
So is it, if I'm going to be clear here, is it your position that if the Senate expresses its will and does not confirm someone that they feel is doing a poor job, that they should not act because it may be difficult to fill that position?
No, Senator, what I am telling you is this bill clearly laid out when we appoint people, how we appoint people, where we keep the list, who appoints them, how we appoint them, how often we appoint them, when we don't appoint them. And this amendment does exactly the opposite. And so if the governor has someone they would like to put into this position, and the body has hearings like we did, and the Senate rejects someone, then by all means, I will stand with the Senate and go for that vote.
Just one last question here. I do believe that you were here the day that we did the sense of the Senate, and we sort of explained to the governor that we weren't happy about the fact that we felt like we were being steamrolled and that there were opportunities for us to hear nominations and have full hearings, and we felt like that wasn't being afforded to us. And you voted yes on the sense of the Senate.
No question, Senator. No question that I voted for that. And guess what we did? We had a committee. We studied the issue. We looked at how it happened. We looked at which committees we wanted to talk about. We had testimony. We had, I think, 3 committee meetings about it. That's exactly what I did, and that's exactly what I voted for. And this amendment does exactly the opposite. And that's my problem. I was looking forward to joining that unanimous vote on this bill until you and others added that amendment that is personal attack, that is against what the whole bill, the Senate, is about, and that is protecting the process, and you are going against the process. And if that, Senator, that's what you want to do, then that's for you.
Would you be for the whole Senate voting on Dr. Simmer staying in that position?
If the Senate wants to vote for or against any appointment that the governor has, that is what we do.
And if theoretically we did that, then you would be for Dr. Simmer being removed?
Senator, that was not what we did. If we did that, we would have had a vote of the Senate to not confirm the appointment.
But do you believe that?
Thank you, Senator.
If the Senate voted to not confirm him, that he shouldn't be in
Senator,
that position?
we didn't take a vote.
But if we did,
we did not have an up or down vote. We know what up or down votes are, and this was not one of those.
What do you think that vote would be if we voted?
I have no idea.
Senator from Charleston, Senator Sutton, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Will the senator yield for some questions?
Happy to yield for questions.
Senator yields for questions.
Yeah, I've heard a couple times already say that it was the will of this body that Dr. Simmer not be confirmed, but are you aware? I never voted on that.
Senator, I think it was a lot of testimony in committee, and I think there are a lot of senators that never had the opportunity to take an up or down vote. Yes, sir.
That vote never came to the floor.
Never saw it on the floor, and you know, if that is the will of the Senate, then maybe that's what we need to do.
Gotcha. Is your understanding from the conversations around that sense of the Senate that we did, plus all this bill, that it was supposed to be a consensus building exercise for us as a body to stand united, stand together and saying, hey, we don't like what you're doing with these appointments, so we are going to be united and going forward and trying to correct some of these improperly done interim appointments. Is that kind of the feeling or the sense
Absolutely.
of the conversation?
I think that the folks who were put on the committee that would have different voices and different ideas, how we should do it, why we shouldn't do it, which committees should be reappointed, which ones should not. I mean, I think that was the entire purpose of the Senate taking a vote to say, hey, Governor, hold up. You will have advice and consent of the Senate. I think that's clear. And that's exactly what the committee did. We took tons of time to make sure it was done right, because this has been in place for a long time. And if we don't take control of what happens in the state of South Carolina, that's exactly what we were doing until Tuesday when this amendment was added, and I put my name on the bill instantaneously.
Gotcha. Along those lines, correct me if my memory is wrong here. I think there were some conversations too with the actions going forward that this would be a looking forward action, that we weren't going to go back. And I think at the time maybe we had the Department of Corrections was an interim capacity, has since been confirmed. I believe there's a child welfare expert still serving. But the conversations around that, correct me if my memory is wrong, was that this would be a forward-looking action, but either between the Senate and then also the bill as well, that we weren't looking to go back and to remove people. Do you remember those conversations?
Absolutely. This body talked about how important it was that we have a security, folks know where things are, how they are, and that's why we've appointed other people during this time. And we made sure those positions, because they were well qualified and they were able to do it. And then we didn't take a vote on this one. And so now all of a sudden we didn't take a vote. So now we're going to add an amendment to remove somebody when they are, again, the longest serving person in this position in history.
And going back to last week, I'll certainly say,
5 years, Senator.
Every once in a while in this chamber, things are snuck through. I experienced it last year when a couple Democrats were out of the chamber, something we got through real quick. I think this was somewhat similar. I went back and watched the video last week, and I'll tell you, I voted for the Senate. I voted for this bill on second reason, under that understanding that this is a unifying effort to protect this institution, and that it would be forward-looking, not going into the back. Looking back, so when I went back and looked at it, when this thing passed and I saw some celebrations on social media and whatnot, I went back and looked, and the only two in our caucus senators in here was myself and the senator from Marion. There's some folks out for a conference, and then we previously reported that there was several people out for different work requirements. And I believe, are you aware that I heard the term, when this was being explained, that I believe the term technical was used, and then also the date May 14th was thrown out there, but it didn't have a year on it at all. I don't know if that was intentional, what that May 14th date would do, but there was no year attached to it. Are you aware of that?
Well, Senator, I'm sure in that amendment it was supposed to say happy birthday to Jeffrey Graham on May 14th. I'm sure that's what the latter part of that amendment was for. But no, Senator, yeah, I am aware of the lack of folks actually in the chamber when I was watching it live and seeing what was going on in the Senate. Thought that we'd have an easy bill that made a lot of sense, that we've spent a lot of time on making sure that the Senate's voice and the public's voice was in on this conversation. And I think that's what didn't happen when the amendment got added. It was completely off of the process of which we were all trying to get clarity on. If this is how we're going to do process, then why did we have the meetings? Why did we have all that conversation? Why did we send the sense of the Senate to the governor? If we were going to say to you later, just kidding, Governor, we'll tell you when you're going to remove the person because, well, we don't like them.
Yeah, next question. Don't expect you to read minds here at all, but are you aware that my opinion, the governor is probably going to veto the original bill as is, because we're at odds over this particular issue. But now adding in a last-minute amendment to fire part of his cabinet that he has nominated and kept in position, are you aware, this is my opinion, that is absolutely a certainty at this point that he will veto this bill? This is assuming even the House takes it up. The House probably ain't going to take this thing up. We got a lot of stuff in the final weeks of session to get through here. So, this thing had long odds before this amendment was added. I think now the odds are impossible. But so, talk me through this. What happens if the governor vetoes this, and assuming again that the House even takes it up, and it comes back to us? What do we need to override that?
Senator, I think the votes on that, I don't have them in front of me, but I think it's 3/5 of the body would have to overpower the veto.
Pretty high margin there.
That would take a lot of people to tell the governor how we really feel about any issue, not just this one. I think that's any veto, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and I'm new here, and my understanding, though, is that doesn't happen very often, and it certainly doesn't really happen on bills that we're just, quite frankly, not united on. That I will say we're heading in a good direction, all rowed on the same boat, and then it took a last-minute, addition in there, quite frankly, to kind of blow this thing up a little bit. So I just help me understand. I don't see the pathway here. Why? Just my opinion that this action right here is damaging what we're trying to do. It totally derails that effort to say that we're united as a Senate. We don't like these interim appointments. The process needs to be reworked. We were all on board until this moment. I mean, what is the point of derailing this and then dividing us as a Senate?
Senator, I think that's exactly right. I mean, 922, as it was originally written, was a consensus of this body saying, hey, Governor, listen, we're a part of this process, and this is how the process works. You're not going to make this little thing happen here and this happen over here, and while we're here, you're going to do this. And that's exactly why we took the time, energy to do this. And if we don't pass 922 as it was originally put in place, we are jeopardizing the bill passing in the House and for the governor to sign it, because guess what? I believe that the governor would sign 922 because it does exactly what he needs, clarity, just like we do. And I think that's exactly what this is about. It's clarity. That's why we're having to do it. If this wasn't going on in these interim other bases of other positions, or appointees being confused on whether they get appointed by the congressional districts or the delegation, or whether it's this county or that county or the state or the governor, or even the agencies in some cases, that's why it wasn't clear. And that's why it's so important that this bill, 922, passes in its original state, which is exactly what the committee talked about, the bipartisan effort to make sure that the governor, future governors, and our history is laid out correctly as we move forward.
And follow up, so this, as amended, would force Dr. Simmer to leave by May 14th. By the way, I really enjoyed our spending your birthday together last year. Like true South Carolina history nerds that we are, we spent it with Ken Burns watching his new documentary down in Charleston. That was a cool moment.
We sure did, Senator. And and I think that's one of those things about history is so important that we make sure that the process, and the reason that we have been here for 250 years is because we have a process. We make sure the process works. We make sure the process works for the state of South Carolina. We make sure the process works for all of us, not just a few that want to remove somebody that has tried and served as the longest serving director in state history. 5 years as that director is unheard of. Everyone else before them was maybe 1 to 2 years at most.
And so this bill as written, it would force Dr. Simmer out, but the other interim director doesn't do anything with that. So
we'd have to, I guess, Mr. President maybe could tell us, but I think we'd have to have the call back of the Senate to be able to reappoint someone else. We'd have to have the confirmation hearings. We'd have to go through that process again to fill in this interim basis. And I think that's why it's not clear. Because if we're going to go down this path, that's what we're setting up, another opportunity to have an interim person that is not able to serve on behalf of the state of South Carolina in their true capacity for 6, 7 months, whatever the date is exactly. We would be jeopardizing the health and wellness of our state. And I think that's not good governance.
And I think through legislation, second week in a row, we're picking winners and choosers here. We're saying this person's got to go through legislation, but this person can stay, even though the interim was the purpose of the bill.
Well, Senator, I think, winners and losers, I think you're exactly right. I think in this instance, we've appointed other folks to serve in their capacity, and our agencies, in a lot of cases, are doing well. Some of our agencies get called to other positions at other levels, which is an honor, I think, for South Carolinians to be not only a director of an agency, but be chosen to be on another level and serving the state of South Carolina. We have talented folks in our state that are serving, whether they're volunteers or whether they're paid. We have great folks in South Carolina that stand up for our community all the time. And I think that's why it's so important that we cannot abandon process, abandon the very reason this Senate is in place, to make sure that we are deliberate in the decisions we make. And this amendment does completely the opposite of being deliberate. It was a last-minute decision.
Thank you. I believe my
Thank you, sir.
seatmate has some questions.
Thank you, but I'm going to, Senator, I got two. Senator from Berkeley, Senator Adams, what purpose do you rise, sir?
While the senator from Kershaw retains the floor, if I can do an introduction, please.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent request by the Senator from Berkeley, Senator Adams, with the Senator from Kershaw retaining the floor for introduction? Hearing no objection, so ordered. Then I'll come to the Senator from Charleston. Senator from Berkeley, Senator Adams.
Thank you, Mr. President. If everybody would look up into the balcony, we are honored today to be represented by the police chiefs spread throughout South Carolina. If y'all would please rise and let everybody see you. These are the folks that protect us, make sure we're all safe, that we're able to get here safely, protect our families while we are here, and our kids and grandkids. And they're our first line of defense. They're the ones that run towards the problems, the crime, the shooting. They're the ones that put themselves between us. And I want to give a big round of applause to all that y'all have sacrificed for us and others. And thank y'all so much for your service to the great state of South Carolina.
Welcome to the Senate. We're honored to have you with us today. Thank you for your service to our communities. We're grateful to each and every one of you. Thank you. Senator from Kershaw retains the floor. Senator from Charleston, Senator Tedder. What purpose do you rise?
With the senator from Kershaw retaining the floor, if I can make a brief introduction.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent request by the Senator from Charleston, Senator Tedder, with the Senator from Kershaw retaining the floor? He'd be able to granted the privilege of the podium for introduction. Hearing no objection, so ordered. I'll take care. Safe travels. Senator from Charleston, Senator Tedder.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Members, as you all are well aware, and if the Charleston delegation or those who have Charleston want to join me, please come up. This is regarding Manufacturing March Madness. Manufacturing is, and this is a quote from the President and CEO of the South Carolina Manufacturers Alliance, Ms. Hazard, and I want to thank them for shining light on our manufacturers. But she quoted, "Manufacturing is at the heart of what makes South Carolina a great place to work and live." And today, I rise with pride to recognize an outstanding group of professionals joining us. Please stand. From Boeing, South Carolina, right in the heart of Charleston County, one of the premier aerospace hubs, not just in our states, but in the entire world. Because of Boeing, our state's aerospace industry has grown tremendously, bringing thousands of jobs, increasing wages, and strengthening our economy across the low country and the state. Studies show Boeing's presence helped generate thousands of additional jobs beyond what was originally promised, with ripple effects throughout our state and the entire nation. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a little friendly competition, that this year, the Manufacturing March Madness, Boeing didn't just participate, they won it all. That tells you something, that when the people of South Carolina speak, they recognize excellence and they recognize the quality, innovation, and craftsmanship that Boeing delivers every single day. So on behalf of the South Carolina Senate and the state of South Carolina, we thank you for choosing Charleston. We thank you for choosing South Carolina and investing in our people, bringing jobs, and lots of money in our state for revenue, Mr. Chair. And with that, I'd yield to any other senator from Charleston that would like to speak.
Senator from Charleston, Senator Sutton is recognized.
I want to recognize Aaron Fisher up there, whose husband and I both operate Boeing products that have kept us safe over a 20-year Air Force career and everything. So next time you see Luke, which I'm sure is tonight, tell him I said hello, and thank you guys for building quality aircraft.
Welcome to the Senate. We're honored to have you. Congratulations on that championship win today.
First place.
Appreciate Boeing. Senator from Kershaw retains the floor. Speaking on the bill, HS 922. Senator from Colleton, what purpose do you rise?
See if the senator would yield for a couple of questions.
Senator yield for questions.
Happy to yield.
Senator yields for questions.
Senator, What year are we in? I'm starting easy.
2026.
And how far away is 997 from 1,000? Easy question.
I don't know, Senator. I don't have a pen with me. 3 years.
Do you realize that as we sit here in March of 2026, we're only 3 away from having 1,000 cases of measles in the state of South Carolina?
Senator, that's a scary thought that measles are taking over South Carolina. That is a scary thought.
And the reason why this came to my mind is because I thought it was interesting, and I want to know how you feel about this. Do you think it's interesting that we're in 2026, a disease that we eradicated over 30 years ago, and we're being forced, our children are being forced to be infected with measles in 2026? Do you think that's a problem?
It is a problem, Senator, and I think most of us are aware that the measles are one of those things that can be prevented, and that we could save our children from being sick from this illness. And you are speaking the truth in that it is something we could do something about. And Senator, I'm in the Rotary Club in Camden, and one of our other diseases we work on is polio. And polio is one of those diseases that also can be eradicated as well. And they've been working on that for years to eradicate it. But there are some places that won't allow that polio vaccine to be given to its population. And Senator, that is exactly where the wars are going on right now.
Do you realize, Senator, that as we stand with nearly 1,000 of our citizens, children, infected, that there are over 686 of those that are from the age of 5 on up? Do you realize that?
Senator, I didn't realize that it was that age group that was being mostly impacted.
But did you realize that over 267 are under the age of 5 that have been infected with measles?
And Senator, I'm aware as a child, my parents making the choice for me to make sure that I was protected from possible concerns that they had, and they desired for me to make sure that I was protected from diseases that could be prevented from a shot. And my parents were able to do that when I was unable to do that for myself.
Senator, did you realize, despite, as we sit here in this august deliberative body, where we're supposed to diligently discuss issues, review facts, and question, did you realize that after I filed, because of this, I call it a serious breakout in the state of South Carolina, because as soon as I heard on national television, I went to research it with the Department of Public Health, and did in fact find that South Carolina, the county of Spartanburg, South Carolina, had more of a measles outbreak than the entire state of Texas. Did you realize that?
I didn't realize that it was more than the state of Texas, but I did know that it was expanding into other counties and into District 35. I did know that.
Did you realize that after filing that bill, the bills basically said, the bill that I filed basically said that it's up to you, parents. You get to decide. Either protect your children with the measles vaccine, you can send them to school, you can't use your religious exception just willy-nilly, or either keep them home.
That's right.
I was giving parents an option. It was not a mandate to make them have measles vaccine. Did you read that bill?
I did, Senator, and I think that that's one of the reasons it's important that people did have a choice. People do have a choice. If they don't want to send their kids to schools, they don't want in some cases, to go to work. I would assume, and maybe you know the answer to this, in the medical field, I would bet that most of those nurses have to have certain shots to be able to show up. Would that be right?
Most of them do. Did you realize that there was a committee, a subcommittee assigned to that bill, and that on that subcommittee, the senators whose areas of the state was most effective were most loud in opposing, I mean, they voiced their concerns. I shouldn't say most loud. They voiced, as well as they should have, against requiring, against a bill which basically said, we want to remove the religious exception so that we could protect these children during this emergency measles outbreak. Did you realize that the bill was killed by the same people whose counties were representing the numbers of the measles outbreak?
Senator, I wasn't aware of the makeup of that committee, but I do understand oftentimes how committees work or don't work, depending on how you look at it. But I am learning that process and figuring out how things do move out of committee and into the floor.
You were asked questions from the Senator Charleston just a minute ago that made me think of some of the hysteria. Do you realize that at that subcommittee that we had the state's epidemiologists testify to the harmful effects of children who contract the measles? She basically debunked some of the hysteria or mistruths regarding vaccines and said that the guy who wrote the article connecting vaccines to autism, that was debunked. He's no longer a doctor. It's somebody from out of this country that wrote that article. The American Medical Association has said that there's no connection or link to vaccines to causing our children to have autism. Did you remember that?
That's wonderful news, Senator, and I think that's why it's extremely important in our committees, and then when we go and hear testimony, we hear professionals that actually this is what they do. This is what they do for a living. They are here to make sure that we know the facts, the information that makes sure that South Carolinians are protected. And that's exactly what you're telling me.
Yes.
That they told you guys as a whole, if we do this, it will lower this. If we do this, it will lower this. And obviously, that committee, based on what you're telling me, has said it doesn't matter what professionals say.
Well, that was one of the reasons why some of the senators on the subcommittee voiced concerns about vaccines. The other reason, there were only two reasons. One was that autism claim, which was debunked. The second one was that there were they specifically said that some of their constituents had provided them with information that vaccines were bad, even though they've kept us alive, that vaccines were bad because they had heard that fetus parts were used in creating the vaccines. Did you realize that Dr. Bell had to basically dispel that and say, no, that is not case, that is a falsehood?
Senator, I think that's exactly right. Falsehoods often come out, and I think the same thing with Dr. Simmer here when we talk about falsehoods, when he's being blamed for what I believe the state of South Carolina protecting its citizens, the city of Camden, all the counties trying to make sure that we were protected during COVID when he wasn't even here as the director. And we want to blame him for the decisions that some other director and the current governor and all of us as citizens went in place to protect South Carolinians, to make sure that we were essential. And South Carolina was and still is essential.
Do you realize that what it looks like, I saw some of the people who objected to my measles bill said that the bill stripped them of their religious rights. Did you see that? And it had nothing to do with the harmful effects of measles. Do you realize those people who were standing behind their religious rights were very disruptive, egged on by senators? They were very unchristian-like in their opposition. Did you see that?
Senator, I did hear from some of those folks in the hallway.
Mr. President, yes, I withdraw that.
Senator, I did hear from folks in the hallways about their feelings and how they felt like the religious purpose in their standing up against it. They were clearly making that information to me to make sure that I was aware. And again, Senator, I think to what your point is, is that is at the purpose of allowing us to vaccinate children, to be able to protect the general public. And so we do a lot of policies across the state that affect all of us. And so there's conversations about water, there's conversations about sewer, there's conversations about where and when you can come in and out of buildings, how many people can be in a space, how many people can be in an emergency room, how many people can be in a surgical facility. And we have regulations to make sure that we're protecting the public. And I believe, Senator, that that's exactly what you're speaking to, is protecting the public. And because we have a crisis.
And we have a responsibility for our constituents to protect them regardless of what party they might be aligned with. Wouldn't you agree, and especially our young children?
Absolutely, Senator, and I think that's why, we are spending money on other health care things that matter a lot, right? We're talking about mental illness. We're talking about how important it is that we deal with cancer. We're talking about how important these things are, and guess what? It takes money, time, but it's also going to take vaccines. It's also going to have to take medicines. So we're going to say you can't take this medicine anymore too, Senator?
Senator, do you realize we had at least 3 doctors that were scheduled, they took off from their practice, that were scheduled and cared about children, that were scheduled to appear and talk at that hearing, that's measles subcommittee, but that the Senate would not listen to their comments. I didn't know what they were going to say, didn't want to hear their testimony, nor did the subcommittee on measles with the state of South Carolina as we stand right now, nor did they even invite Dr. Simmer as the director.
Senator, one of the things that I've appreciated a lot about the committees is when you do have those directors come and talk about the actual issues, to hear about what's going on in the different areas of South Carolina. That is one of the things I've enjoyed the most about committees, when you're hearing from experts that come, whether they're an agency director or whether they are the public, having their perspective, coming to us and saying, hey, this is an issue, this is a concern. And I think that's to the very point of what we're talking about. Dr. Simmer is qualified, was qualified, still is qualified. Now, again, the new governor's going to pick someone else. The new governor's going to pick someone else.
That's what I was going to ask you next, Senator.
Or if he tries to appoint the same person, hold on, Senator. If he tries to appoint the same person, guess what? This body would have to go through the process to have hearings and then say, nope, sorry, and a no vote in this body would mean that.
Senator, you were not here during the COVID outbreak, but you were mayor at the time, weren't you?
Yes, Senator, I served in the city of Camden at that time.
And you had to take some emergency action because we're not given a lot of warning that COVID-19 was here.
No, ma'am, and I think a lot of us had to take action to protect our public, and I think that's one of those things that we had to do locally, the state did, in the best protection of its citizens at the time with the knowledge and the information they had. But Senator, I think you know this, but Dr. Simmer wasn't here then.
I know, Doctor. Okay. That was the next point I was going to make.
Just want to make sure.
Dr. Simmer was not here during that time, but it was doing the COVID vaccine or not the vaccine, the Dr. I didn't know who Dr. Fauci was until
Never heard of him before that either.
COVID came up. So there were a lot of people that liked Dr. Fauci and a lot of people that did not agree or like his position on a lot of things, but we made it through COVID. I remember, did you know, I sat on a committee where we literally took half of a day, did you know, on the issue of vaccines. And since then, it has appeared, and you tell me if it's the same for your perception, that there is some type of either COVID hysteria or vaccine disbelief or untrust that has seemed to wipe over certain swaths of our constituencies.
No question, Senator, and I think over the 250 years of our great nation, I think you'll find there have been times where folks have been against this or against that, and they've expressed their voice in a process, in a way that they continue to make sure that our nation could stand strong. And again, I think the years of people wanting this or not wanting this, if we had the cure to cancer tomorrow, would people want to have it done? I'd say some people would say no. I want to know what can cure my mom.
Right.
I would have wanted that. But I didn't get that chance because we don't have that cure, or at least it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable to me, or it's not acceptable to you. So therefore, I can't allow that company to continue to investigate whether cancer can be cured.
Right.
I think that's exactly to this point of how important it is that medicine and things have changed over life.
Would it surprise you, Senator, that Dr. Bell kept trying to tell the committee that there is credible medical evidence out there of how easy it is for our children to get the measles, and even though they may recover from the measles, what long-term diseases or problems they might have with their central nervous system, we may not find that for 8 years after.
And Senator, I would assume you know, is when we talk about measles and getting a shot, I don't know the cost to have that measles shot, but I would imagine it's pretty minimal compared to the amount of health care that will be needed for that child when they are diagnosed with these continual diseases as they move forward.
Senator, do you remember when I introduced the measles bill, I specifically stood at the well where you are right now, and I said this bill was being introduced in memory of my 47-year-old sister-in-law who contracted measles as a child, and it wasn't until she hit 11 years old that they were able to link the measles to the three of the four ventricles of her heart being damaged.
Senator, I do remember that, and I do remember you speaking from the heart about how important it is that we make sure that our state is protected of the health and wellness of our citizens, and that's exactly why this amendment is in the wrong direction in protecting the health and wellness of our state.
So now let me get back to what I was initially talking about with Dr. Simmer. He wasn't here during the COVID, but he's being blamed for anything connected to COVID or Dr. Fauci or anything related to some of these outlandish reasons why people who had vaccines as a child who all of a sudden don't like vaccines.
That's right, Senator.
But let's say if what has been snuck in this bill as an amendment comes to fruition, and this state, and we have a lame duck governor, and we're out at the end of May from
May
being
14th
in session. And if by chance we end up with an epidemic or a pandemic during that time, we in this Senate are saying that it is okay for us to have a vacant Department of Public Health for whatever, from May all the way until we go through the process, which may take about 6 to 8 months to approve a new director. Is that what you understand is happening here?
That is one of the reasons that I put my name on this bill, thought it was going to jeopardize not only the healthcare side of our state and making sure our citizens, that is exactly why if the governor has someone else that he would like to appoint, by all means, all those folks that are here in this body that know somebody that can run this agency, I think it's a great time to call the governor up and let him know that you would like to appoint so-and-so to this position. Let him come to the body, let him come to the process, let him be affirmed by this body is what we're supposed to do. And so if we're going to pass this amendment that ends it on the last day of the session, if we don't do that, we're going to wait until the governor's going to veto this bill or pass the bill, and then this person's going to be removed, and then we're going to have an interim appointment that's going to go into place without this body having advice and consent.
And public health
It doesn't stop.
If we don't do something to protect our citizens and make sure that they have the vaccines or opportunity to have be vaccinated, public health is affected because these children go to school, these adults interact with other adults and children, and the medical and financial burden really is going to rest with the state of South Carolina if these people remain unhealthy.
No question, Senator. And I think the other part of that is if you don't have a director of an agency for 6 to 8 months, who's in charge? What's in charge? Do we know the process? Do we know where the goals are? Do we know what the agency's going to do? Do we know what the whole last 5 years of changing this agency, moving it around, changing the names, changing buildings, changing personnel, who's responsible for this? We've made changes this year to make sure the wording's right on certain bills, to make sure it goes to the correct agency. Not having someone that wakes up every day to make sure that the health and wellness of our children, our seniors, and our state is their priority would be a mistake for South Carolina. And that's what this amendment does. It says, hey, we'll just put it on pause. We'll wait and see what happens. No, I'm not. I'm not going to wait to see what happens for children in our health care in South Carolina. We've worked too hard to allow that to happen.
I appreciate your efforts, and I thank you. But one last question. This amendment basically is toss out Dr. Simmer because we don't like his ideology. Nothing has been specifically directed at anything that he has failed to do in carrying out his job, right?
Senator, I'm not aware of anything specific that is requiring him or asking for him or should be or demanded or any wrongdoing by any laws that we have for him to be removed from it. He was appointed by the governor and when this agency split by this body, and he's been serving in that capacity since. And again, like I told you earlier, he's the longest serving one.
Senator, would you agree with this statement that this is akin to throwing the baby out with the bathwater, the baby being Dr. Simmer?
I've heard that used a lot up here, and I believe that's exactly what this is. Thank you.
Senator from Charleston, Senator Lieber, what purpose do you
Senator,
have?
we yield for just one line of questioning.
Senator, we yield. Senator, yields for question.
I've heard you say abandoning process and words like that. I believe as an institution, the Senate is very careful about following the rules, and it takes great pride in that. It's not your position that there was something that was done underhanded when we passed this amendment, right?
No, Senator. I don't think there was anything underhanded. I think just like I had the right to put my name on this bill, which you questioned whether I could do a little while ago, you have every right to make any amendment, and so that's where that is.
I don't think I've questioned anything you've done, and there also in this just now, the senator from Colden, you guys were exchanging that this was some sort of a sneak amendment or something. There's nothing like that in the Senate, right?
Well, Senator, I think when the body doesn't always have the folks in it, it could look like one of those. When I was, like I said, watching this on the live stream, and again, I think it's very important that we make sure that all of these public meetings are out there for the public to see and that we are transparent, and I think that's exactly why I was able to see what was going on the Senate floor and be able to make sure that I was looking after the protection of South Carolinians, just like you with your amendment.
But just as a senator, you would agree that we don't do sneak amendments, and if someone wants to voice opposition to an amendment, as a deliberative body, we will talk about it all day, and also they have an ability to cast a no vote. I mean, you agree to that, right?
Senator, I think if we had a no vote on Dr. Simmer or a yes vote on Dr. Simmer, then I don't know that you'd have this amendment. Would that be correct?
So, and also
Would that be correct,
in the
Senator?
health department, we have more than just Dr. Simmer, right? There's a whole bunch of employees that work over there, right? That perform their job. I mean, we're not going to fall apart as a state if we're all expendable, right? There's no one person that keeps us all healthy, right?
Senator, I think that having a lead person is very important, and I think you would know that better than anyone in this room with your military service. And having someone that leads that group into the right battle in the right time in the right place, you would know best about that and how important it is to have that leader. Would you agree with that?
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for hearing my questions.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator from Williamsburg, what purpose do you have?
Thanks, President. To see whether or not Senator Kershaw would yield for a question or two.
Happy to yield.
Senator, yields for questions.
Senator, thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, you know that I've been listening to the debate and the exchanges. And, Senator, there was one theme that I think has risen from all of the questions that was posed. And, Senator, did you know that I would put it a different way? I would say that the institution of the Senate is greater than any individual senators.
no question. And that's one thing when I learned when I first walked in how important this body as a whole is versus me as an individual.
And Senator, do you know that I can probably, Senator, count on one hand the moments where all of us as senators agreed that it was almost like the Brown versus Board of Education decision, where it was so important that every Supreme Court justice voted in favor to say to America, it's time. And Senator, do you know that there's only been, and I've been fortunate and blessed to be in this body now, I think, going on 12 years, but that in my 12-year tenure, that it's been less than 5 times that leaders of this Senate has come before us and say, I need your attention. This is a matter of great institutional import. Senator, do you know that this was one of those issues?
Senator, you're exactly right, and that's why I was so surprised last Tuesday that this was added on.
And so, Senator, do you know that I think that it is a difficult thing sometimes for bodies to try to figure out a way to walk something back, perhaps not realizing the impact that something that they do might have.
Senator, I think you're exactly right.
And Senator, do you know that what disturbs me in this moment is that we will not be united on this bill on third reading.
Senator, it would be very rare that I think, based on the conversation, the amount of importance that this body means to the state of South Carolina, the purpose of us clarifying the importance of this bill, by the energy, the activity, the conversations that we had building up to this moment, that we were just going to wash that away because of an amendment. And Senator, those amendments sometimes will kill bills. And I don't know that this bill is going to get killed, but I don't think this is what we want to go down in a process that I don't believe is what we stand for.
Senator, do you know that I was one of the ones who was not here, not that I would have necessarily caught it, but Senator, do you know I'm not sure, and I wish I had one of those crystal balls or something where I could know what would occur. But Senator, do you know, well, I'm satisfied of one thing, and I realize I'm bouncing a little bit, but Senator, do you know I'm satisfied that if we were made aware fully, and I'm not suggesting that anybody did anything nefarious, but if we were fully aware of what you are now calling to our attention in a major way, that there would have been many, I believe, that would have spoken out and suggested that this is not the time, that this is not the place for this amendment.
Senator, I think sometimes in this body, we are busy, and we have folks that call on us for many different things and pull us away and have important issues. But I think this is one of those issues that, whether I'm the only one that feels that way or not, I believe this is one of those issues when we sat here and talked about how important the process was, when we sat here and said, hey, we need to make sure, without a doubt, that the future governor of South Carolina knows this is how it goes, this is when it happens, if you don't do it this way, this is what will happen. And that's what we worked on. That's why we're here. We have a reason to do this bill. It was bipartisan. It's been in my opinion, an easy bill to work on because it mattered so much, because it was beyond how important it was for Senator Graham from Kershaw County. It was about South Carolina's history and how we protect that history moving forward.
And Senator, your point about the bipartisan nature of it, Senator, not only was it bipartisan, do you agree with me that there are 46 of us?
Senator, there are 46 of us. Some days we're here, some days we're not.
I understand. But at the moment where we were called to come together as senators, every single senator in the state of South Carolina that was here agreed. that this was important, that we needed to come together, and that's what we did, Senator.
Senator, we did, and then we said, hey, just so we're clear, after we took that vote of this body to say, Governor, on notice, we said, hey, let's make sure we get it right. Put it in code, put it in law, make it right. Make sure that everyone knows how important these appointments are. Make sure that everyone knows how intentional this is.
And so, Senator, my last point, you mentioned just now in your answer making it permanent. And that's why, Senator, did you know that I'm disturbed a little bit about targeting individuals as a part of our effort to make something permanent and to send a message to anybody in the state of South Carolina that this is how the Senate, this is how the South Carolina Senate operates. And when we start targeting an individual, Senator, do you know that's not how we operate?
Senator, I don't believe that's what I've seen in my time here. I don't believe in the history that I've read about the South Carolina Senate, the friends that I have made and the friends that I have known that served this great body. That is not how the state Senate worked in the past, nor do I think it should be how we move forward.
Thank you, Senator.
And body, I think, one of the other things I think is important to know, and we talked about qualifications, about why this why this appointment was so important, and having the expertise and needing someone else to step up and serve in this role. And so I think if the governor wants to appoint someone else and this body can take that up before the end of session, I think that's exactly what we need to do. And one of the things I think is important, that Dr. Simmer served in the U.S. Navy for 30 years. And you're telling me that now, because of his national service to our country, having to make sure that the health care and wellness of our soldiers is not good enough for South Carolina to be the director? Senator, I'm having a hard time understanding why we would remove someone who has served for the last 5 years, taken an agent from within inside of another organization, and moved it to a standalone organization. There's been a lot of good things that have happened on health care and across our state, making sure that our environment is taken care of from the medical side. But again, I think that's exactly what Dr. Simmer's been able to do. He's been able to lead our state into making sure that health care options are available in protecting the public.
Senator from Spartanburg, Senator Martin, what purpose do you
See if
ask?
the senator from Kershaw would yield for a quick question.
Senator, yield for question.
Happy to yield.
Thank you, Senator. I'm looking on my calendar. I believe we're on Senate Bill 922. Has this bill been amended since second reading when it was voted on 40-0? Or
Yes, sir. It was amended by a voice vote, and that is the amendment was to basically remove the director.
But then after that voice vote on amendment, what we do in the Senate when we take a second reading, 40-0, that's a roll call vote.
Yes, sir. It was
So it
a
hasn't
voice
been
vote.
amended.
Yes, sir.
It hasn't been amended since then. 40-0 is not a roll. It's not a voice vote, but it was voted on 40-0. Did you know on March 17th? I'm trying to figure out. I had to miss a day for the
Yes, sir.
Citadel, but has this bill been voted on since then?
No, sir.
So the bill currently exists as it was voted on unanimously on a roll call vote in the Senate.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. And so I think it's very important that we look at this appointment and how they were appointed to South Carolina. We talked about how that agency was serving and how it split the agency up. He was appointed in that position. And body, this is not about, for me, it's not about Dr. Simmer or whoever's in that position. It's about the process we want to follow. And if the process we want to follow is that whenever we want to remove somebody, we can just take that vote. And that's what we're doing with this amendment.
Senator from Colleton, what purpose do you ask?
Just a quick question to see if
Senator,
he would
yield for
yield.
question. Senator yields for question.
Happy to yield.
Just clarifying the question that was asked of you by the senator from Spartanburg. It wasn't a roll call vote, but an application of a prior roll call vote that is reflected in the journal, isn't it?
Senator, I believe you're right. It was using, I'm not certain of the rule number 16, but it is basically using a vote that was already taken, that was a unanimous vote earlier in the Senate. And if those senators weren't on the floor, their vote still gets counted. And Senator from Spartanburg, that's what happened in this instance. It was, the roll call was not called, and it's traditional fashion, but they did follow the rule to do so.
And isn't it correct that there were two separate press conferences being held, one regarding guns and moms demand action, and there were a lot of senators out of the chamber when they did the application to a prior unanimous vote?
And Senator, when I was watching it live and saw what was going on, that's exactly what I saw. Half of the chamber wasn't here, and when I heard it, that is when I made a call to make sure my name was on the bill.
Thank you.
And I think that is exactly why my name was on the bill, and it's my understanding today my name was taken off the bill, and I'm trying to make sure that the voice that I carry in this Senate is heard. And so I think this is why it's important that we stand for process. And I think we are changing the process by doing the exact opposite of what the purpose of this bill was. And I think that if we want to leave this amendment on there and move forward and make it more confusing for the next governor, or even for the current governor for that matter, that we have to have an appointment to this position. So if the governor has an appointment or any of us have an appointment, I think we need to bring that person to the table, and I think we need to have them processed and get them in as soon as possible. Now, are they willing to serve for 6 to 8 months? I don't know. But I know that the qualifications of this person were able to allow us to serve. He was able to deliver for South Carolina. He stood here in South Carolina making sure that South Carolinians were safe while dealing with all of the things in his home that he wanted to protect by wearing a mask. And if you want to blame him for wearing a mask by protecting himself so when he came home he could protect his family, where's the freedom in that?
Senator from Charleston, Senator Sutton, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Senator, you yield for some questions.
Happy to yield for questions.
Senator yields for questions.
So this last amendment we're spending a good bit of time talking about, it doesn't apply to the Department of Public Safety, Military Department, or SLED, or any other departments, right? Just one department?
Yeah, just this amendment is actually just for one person. One plan, one nothing. No one else has been considered in this kind of removal process.
Do you see that very often?
Say that again, Senator?
Do you see that very often?
Senator, I found that most folks don't like something that's just for one particular issue or just one county or one city. We like to make sure that this affects the state of South Carolina because we want to make sure that it's governed correctly across the state. And we don't want just rules for you and me. We want rules for us. And I think this is concerning.
Yeah, and I appreciate, too, are you aware of what you said earlier about, from the military aspect, that unity of command and leadership is incredibly important for an organization. I would say point to, the recent action in Iran. It was very deliberate that Israel's first strike was to take out the command structure of the Iranian regime, which is terrible regime, but that was deliberate. They didn't go out, let's focus on everybody but that. But maybe another example in the military structure why that leadership was targeted, because it's important and it makes a big impact on how organizations operate.
No question, and I think that's why not having a director for 6 to 8 months, maybe longer, depending on if the next governor can find somebody else. Or are we gonna? What's our plan then if we don't have the next governor appoint someone else? But again, that's not what this is about. This is about removing somebody that is serving in the capacity of the state of South Carolina, the longest serving director that we've had, serving in that capacity, approved by the governor and the Senate at that time. And again, we did not, as a body, take a vote to remove him. And I think this is exactly what the bill talks about. We spent so much time making sure that this body understood the importance of making sure that it was clear to the governor. If we do this, it's not clear. If we do this is not clear for the next person that gets this position, that they're appointed to this position, it will not be clear. And I think that's why the whole purpose of it was to be very clear to the next governor of South Carolina, that they're very clear that advice and consent is the rule of the land, the rule of this body. This amendment doesn't do that. It says we'll do it when we want to. We didn't approve you. We'll never will approve you. And that's just the way it is. That's not what y'all said, and that's not what I said, and that's not what we want. We want to make sure that we are advising the governor on whether our body believes that they are the right person for the job.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, I know this, yeah, beyond this amendment, it does some other things. Are you able to give a recap of what it does to the State Elections Commission at all?
Senator, I don't actually have the bill in front of me because I didn't realize with my name on the bill today, I thought we wouldn't have to have this debate, but somehow, some rule has called me to the dais here to talk, and so here I am. And so, no, Senator, I don't have that bill in front of me, but if someone would bring it to me, I'd be happy to talk
I
about.
have you talk through. And the way we got here is there was a motion made to unanimous consent, which is ejected, but go through the third reading contested calendar rather than going through, it's allowed per rules, certainly. But usually we do these things by special order so we can, have a fair debate. But anyway, that's my call to make the call of the body. But are you aware that one of the other things that this bill does is it changes the appointment process for the State Elections Commission? It's striking text that members who are currently appointed by the governor for 4-year terms, and rewrites it so the 5 commissioners would be appointed by the governor with the advice and consent of the Senate. So we are bringing more positions under our advice and consent. Did you realize that?
Senator, I think there are some that get removed, and there are some that get added. Some have no jurisdiction over the Senate, and that's why we debated certain ones. We talked about. We wanted to make sure that the process was clear on which ones. All of our bodies, for those that are still learning like me, in the committees, some appointments are from each committee, and so the Transportation Committee could have appointments, the Agriculture Committee could have appointments, and so each of those have different appointments in different committees, and that's where a lot of these come from. And so what we tried to do is look through the entire sheet, and we had an Excel sheet that showed us which one was appointed by the governor, which ones were delegations, and trying to get a way to make sure that the public knew about how these appointments were done, when they were done, how they're done, and then who gets to appoint them, and then also which ones have the advice and consent of the Senate. I mean, to me, that was the reason.
Yeah, and are you aware too that in the realm of the Election Commission, it changes the term length and tenure structure as well. Instead of a fixed 4-year terms, the commissioners would serve terms continuous with the governor. Are you aware that the bill changes that as well?
Yes, sir, Senator.
So no longer on a independent 4-year cycle. And are you aware, I think maybe we obviously have had some issues over the Election Commission. I'm not necessarily staking out a strong position on that, but I think these are facts, since we are taking the time to be deliberate and look at some of these things. I do want to make yourself and the entire body aware of some of the bigger structural changes that this bill is making as well.
Well, Senator, I think that's exactly right. I think the Election Commission, the previous director resigned or whatever happened, and then there was an interim that was appointed, and then I think the qualifications for that person came to the Senate or was on the way to the Senate, and guess what? They didn't meet the qualifications. So guess what the Senate doesn't do? We don't approve it, right? And so I think that's very clear. The process said, hey, I appreciate you applying. I appreciate your interest, but unfortunately, you don't meet the credentials or the standard of the process in which we have to follow. And I think, without a doubt, that's exactly what happened with the Election Commission, and maybe that's what you had in mind there. So.
Yes, sir. And, going back to the amendment that's written specific to one person, are you worried that a new precedent is being set from this body? And one thing I hear from agencies a lot is that, they're looking for consistency, fair rules, predictability. But are you worried that we're setting a new precedent by sticking in an amendment last minute on a bill to start removing one person in particular, and then basically because we don't like them or a few people didn't like them?
No question, Senator. And I think, when you look at the original bill and how important it was that we looked at how people are appointed, when they're appointed, how long they're appointed, who appoints them. That's exactly why when I saw this amendment, it worries me because it's not that. It says, and it talks about how they're removing someone and pick the date. I think it says the second Tuesday in May, so it doesn't actually say the date, but it was May 14th, as we've established earlier. And it says only if the governor acts to fill during the same interim period in which the office became vacant. So again, the governor will have to appoint someone else if he can find someone. Again, if he has someone, bring them to the table. Bring them to us now. Let's start that conversation with the next person that can lead a state agency for 5 years. That's unusual in South Carolina to have agencies that serve that long. And in this instance, he did that, and he still continues to do that. And guess what? In January, that win.
And going through some of the other things that this bill does, and, from my position, are you aware, so I'm not making a judgment of my own, good, bad, but since we're shining a closer spotlight on this, are you aware that this bill will move the Willow Gray trustees that are currently elected by the General Assembly to appointment by the governor with Senate confirmation as well?
Absolutely, and just for the clarification of the body, I think it's important, is that the way this amendment does as the governor may appoint a current employee at the Department of Health. And so I do think that is a clarity difference, that the governor has the ability to appoint someone from that office, but not necessarily as the director. So again, it does allow that in the amendment, and for those that are listening, I think it's important that all the facts are there, and I appreciate that information being sent to me. Thank you.
This is, and you may not know the answer to this one, but again, opens up a whole can of words of questions. What happens if we don't, if we get a confirmation sent to us and we don't confirm by sine die? What happens to that person in the process? Do you feel comfortable offering any explanation on that?
Yes, Senator. So I think, when we talk about if this person is appointed by the governor, the staff member at the Department of Public Health is appointed, that person, though may be very, very qualified, may be the perfect pick for the future of the healthcare in South Carolina. According to this amendment, that director cannot be chosen, cannot be the person that comes before us. So now we got the second deputy, or I don't know what the title is, to be second in charge there. But according to this amendment, that second tier person or second in charge, they would not be able to be it. So now you got our best and brightest, maybe in second string, if you will, or fourth string like me here today. I think that's extremely important that person won't even have the opportunity to serve. And so they could be a state employee for 5 years or 28 years, but according to this amendment, they cannot be considered, nor can they even apply to serve in this position. That's not a good idea. That's not good governance. Again, I think if we've got qualified people within our agency, Governor, I think right now would be a great time to bring that person to the table and let us take a vote.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator from Williamsburg, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Thank you, Mr. President. See what Senator would yield for a question or two.
Senator, yield for questions.
Happy to yield.
Senator, yield for questions.
Senator, do you know that there's an amendment on the desk?
No, Senator, I was not aware there was an amendment on the desk.
And Senator, it'd be nice for us to be able to get to it.
Senator, if we can get to that amendment, then I will sit down. Thank you.
President, can we have a brief recess? I guess 5 minutes.
I'm sorry. Recess. Is there objection? 5 minutes. Senator from Edgefield.
I do not object as long as the clock continues to run.
Without objection.
Without
objection. 5 minute. 5 minute. Up to 5 minutes. Stand at ease.
Near the northern coastline of South Carolina, just south of Murrells Inlet, is an outdoor sanctuary that is like no place else in the world. Brook Green Gardens is affectionately called the floral jewel of the coast. The garden is a blend of exquisite art and beautiful nature that can now be viewed from the sky. When guests arrive at the entrance of the gardens, they're greeted by the Fighting Stallions. Sculpted in 1950, the aluminum cast piece serves as a beacon to the magnificent 9,000-acre wildlife preserve and sculpture garden. This sculpture has a twin sister nearly 1,400 miles away at Texas State University. Anna von Hyatt Huntington, the creator, and her husband Archer Milton Huntington donated the replica in 1951. It would be just one of many acts of philanthropy this couple would contribute to the world. Their most prominent gift would be providing public access to American sculpture arts by creating Brook Green Gardens. Established in 1932, Brook Green was founded on 4 rice plantations but turned into a vacation home after the Huntingtons purchased the land. Eventually, their passion for the arts and wildlife conservation turned their new winter getaway into one of the world's finest sculpture gardens. Once inside the grounds, onlookers get a breathtaking view at the lush, low-country landscape that Anna and Archer dedicated their life work to. Today, the gardens exhibit more than 2,000 different sculptures by 430 artists, making Brook Green the largest and most comprehensive collection of American figurative sculpture in the country. Both of the Huntingtons are commemorated here by a piece called The Visionaries. Carved from limestone by Anna herself, it now decorates the Welcome Center Plaza as a tribute to the creators. Around each corner, a new and stunning display of vegetation with fountain-decorated sculptures can be seen. The grandest of all is Pegasus, sculpted by Laura Garden Fraser. Fraser was commissioned to create the sculpture and began her work in 1946 by carving huge slabs of granite from Mount Airy, North Carolina. Because the structure was so enormous, it was shipped in
Senator,
3
please come to
separate
order.
pieces to be assembled together
Senator from
on the
Greenville,
property.
Senator Corbin, what purpose do you rise?
Whether it's the thought-provoking
Mr. President, unanimous consent request.
State your request.
To add the role of the Senate to a resolution for a fire chief that's retiring in District 5.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent request by the Senator from Greenville, Senator Corbin, to add the role of the Senate to a congratulatory retirement resolution? Is there objection? Here, no objection. So ordered. Okay. We have an amendment on the desk. Reading clerk will publish the author of the amendment.
The amendment is by Senators Matthews, Sutton, Hutto, and Sabb.
This is again is an amendment on third, 3/5 Senator, Senator from Williamsburg. What purpose do you rise, sir?
Just unanimous consent that we be allowed to go to the amendment and speak on it.
Is there objection to consideration of the amendment? Hearing no objection to the consideration, I'd ask the reading clerk to publish the amendment.
Bill by striking section 41 and inserting.
Senator from Williamsburg is recognized on his amendment and others. Amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members. Really want us to consider something that I think is extremely important. I take very seriously when we huddle and we talk about the institution. We did that, y'all. We did that. We had what some folks classify as being a come by young moment, where there was something in the air. It was like the spirit of the Senate was hovering over us. It was like there was a calling beyond what we normally do. Just one of Senator Cherokee, I think it'd be fair to just classify it as being a senatorial moment. And of course, you've been here longer than I have. But I just wonder whether or not anybody who's been around for a long time can recount more than 10 instances where there were senatorial moments in this body. And Senator from Cherokee, I'd like for us to go offline later on, and would really love to have that conversation to the extent that the information can be shared about what was it? What was it that brought us together and say, the institution's almost at risk. And so as a Senate, then we are called for something greater than the individual who we are. We had a senatorial moment that's fleeting away, but we don't have to let it happen. And I know how it is when we do something. One of the most difficult things in the world is to say, on second thought, let's not. On second thought, let's not allow our senatorial moment to be remembered as a simmer bill. A bill designed to deal with one individual in one place. Let us not allow a senatorial moment to be named after an individual that doesn't represent the best of who we are. And that's what I think is at stake. And so I went to the majority leader and I asked him for the opportunity to have a senatorial conversation on this issue. I don't know where y'all gonna end up. I don't intend to talk long. But I did want to make the point that I felt you all. I felt every member of this body that spoke to this issue. I felt you. And I'm absolutely satisfied that I am not the only one in this body who felt something greater than us just being an individual senator. We thought institution, y'all. We didn't think about whether or not I'm a Republican or whether or not I'm a Democrat. We thought about the fact that there will be others who will come after us, and we're going to preserve an institution for them. We're going to make certain that advice and consent is what it was constitutionally designed to be. That's what this bill is or was. I submit that this has become a simmer bill, y'all. It has become a dividing tool rather than us coming together as an institution. Don't let it happen. So what I've done, along with the craftsmanship of others, is we've changed the date where it will not apply to an individual. It will remain an institutional bill, which is what it was designed to be. His term would be over. Have a new governor. So it's not the simmer bill. It's not the simmer bill. Now I know some of y'all, my good friends, first thing y'all do is y'all read the bills. I'm not satisfied at all, but my brothers and sisters in the chambers have looked at the bill, but all it does is it changes the date. That May date that we had in there is no longer. There's a new date. December the 31st, 2026. What's magical about that, Senator from Williamsburg? I'm glad my friend Senator from Lawrence asked. What's magical about it, Senator, is it removes the individuality that will become the face of our senatorial legislation. So I'm just asking everybody to, please, ma'ams and sirs, don't let that happen. Let's keep it as the institutional preservation bill that we all came together to create. My last point on this. We had a debate last week, and my neighbor, Senator from Darlington, had an amendment. And he and I had some offline conversations as well as our floor conversations just about the idea of the importance of debate when it comes to a bill, and how at first thought it's a good idea. But then when you listen to some of your colleagues flesh it out, then you realize, well, maybe it wasn't as good as I thought it was when I did it. And maybe I ought to walk it back and either think about a better way of doing it, or the fact that it takes away from what we're trying to do rather than adding. I think that there is courage in that. I think there's wisdom in that. And I think that there is a certain level and air of responsibility that's within that. And so I'm asking y'all to consider from whence we've come. We came from the standpoint of preserving the institution. We did that. We came from the standpoint of making certain that the president of the Senate is informed and then can inform us. We did that, y'all. We did our job. We did what we were supposed to do. Y'all want to do this, do it in another form of legislation. I mean, the votes are in here to do it if that's the will of this body. Don't do it in this one. Do what you want to do, but do it in the right way. Somebody used to tell me a long time ago, son, it's not what you do. Sometimes it's what? Help me somebody. It's how you do it. This is not the way to handle that issue. That's a standalone. This is institutional. All right, I'm beginning to become repetitive, and I promised myself I wasn't going to do that. But I do want to make perhaps one final point. My high school principal, you all have heard me mention his name before, Dr. Charles Edward Murray, had a saying that people do according to their understanding. Our job, our responsibilities as senators, I believe, is to help each other when it comes to matters, and particularly a matter of import like this one. We've had the discussion, y'all. I think we understand the issues. And so I thank you for your attention.
Senator from Newberry, what?
Williamsburg or wherever, King Street.
Williamsburg.
Will yield for a question.
Senator, yield for a question.
From Williamsburg, but I'm a Greeleyvillian, so anyway. Yes, sir, I will.
Senator, as a fellow member
of the Ronnie Caucus?
That small caucus, the Ronnie Caucus, did you know, I may be about to crawl out on a limb, Senator Glenn McConnell, when he was here, President Pro Tem and Chairman of the Judiciary Committee, I can remember one time he let the senator from Lawrence and myself crawl out on a limb when I first got elected, like some 23 years ago, and we were taking up tort reform, and we made the motion to carry over that particular bill in the Judiciary Committee. So I may be about to do that again by what I'm about to say, but do you have an amendment up there on taking the date out? Is that what we're discussing now? That is your amendment?
Senator, it actually extends the date to a point where it doesn't direct anything at anybody.
Okay.
So that was the impact of it.
And Senator, did you know that I'm sort of like you? I guess we think together on this one issue, you know, in the caucus there. But I have never believed in trying to target or single out one individual. I don't think that's quite fair. And Senator, regardless, in this particular case, we all know who it was directed at. And in this particular case, it's almost a moot point because, I mean, you know, it's like May or December, you know. So I don't see why we're getting wrapped around the axle on that one little point. So, Senator, did you know that as your fellow member of the caucus, I'm going to be voting with you? So,
Senator, you don't know how much that means and how much I agree with everything that you shared with us. Thank you.
Question is, adoption of the amendment. Senator from Edgefield, what purpose do you raise, sir?
You heard on the amendment?
You're recognized on the amendment.
It's number one is, I think we're conflating.
Request for you to take the well. Senator from Edgefield.
Mr. President, a couple points. Number one is, I think we're conflating a couple things here. That what we had unanimous support for, what we said, this is a senatorial moment, we did have that. It was not on this bill. That was on a sense of the Senate resolution, Mr. President, that dealt specifically with the existing interim appointments and how we would handle those with notification process going forward. This bill's different. And so the debate that's happened in the last couple hours and some comments that were made about that, those are two separate issues. They're two separate issues that the body has voted on. And so I wanted to make that point. The second point I'll make is, y'all, we can have a vote on Dr. Summer. We can have a full vote. We can have a vote with the whole body here. The body could vote 46-0 to reject that appointment, and you know what happens? Nothing. Because the way the legislation was written, when we went from DHEC to the Department of Environmental Services and DPH, that person continues to serve until his successor is nominated and confirmed by the Senate. We can't do anything about it because of the way that it was written. Now, does that mean we made a mistake in writing the legislation? Maybe we did. All right? But this is a way to correct that legislative mistake. This is a legislative fix to the legislative mistake. All right? And I think this is entirely proper because it was a legislative mistake that we address it here. So I appreciate, I understand all the comments that have been made so far. Some of them are legitimate. And I listened to what everybody said. I listened to all the questions. I listened to the comments. And look, and I think, look, y'all, Tuesdays at 12 until we adjourn, Wednesdays at 1 until we adjourn, and Thursdays at 11 until we adjourn are work days. If something happens during those times, ain't nobody tricking you. Right? You're supposed to be here. Now, I understand things come up. They come up for all of us. But if you're out at a press conference or if you're out talking to somebody or you got to be gone doing something else. You can't come and whine because you missed a vote, because you knew that that's a work day. So, I mean, I understand the comments. I appreciate it. I appreciate the defense of the current director. Mr. President, I respectfully move to table the amendment.
Motion is to table the amendment. Roll call has been requested. Well, Senator from Edgefield.
See the senator from Richland standing. I'd ask unanimous consent to withdraw my motion and let me try to answer a question from the senator from Richland.
Is there objection with temporarily withdrawing the motion? Hearing no objection. So ordered. Senator from Richland, Senator Devine, what purpose do you rise, ma'am?
See if the senator would just answer a few, yield for a couple questions.
Sure.
Senator, yield for a couple questions.
Thank you, Senator. And I know that the bill was introduced. You're saying it's different issues, but I guess my question is, the bill was the legislative fix to what the sense of the Senate was stating. Is that correct?
No, ma'am.
So what would be the difference to the bill from the sense of the Senate?
Well, the sense of the Senate resolution dealt exclusively with interim appointments, and it dealt with the process by which the Senate was going to receive and then act upon those. Right? So that applies today. It applies if this bill doesn't pass. It's going to apply going forward. The bill deals with, I mean, it touches on interim appointments, but it also deals with the Election Commission. It deals with 34, 35 other appointments. It deals with somebody mentioned Will Lou Gray. It deals with the Legislative Audit Council. It deals with a whole host of things. Those are two very different issues.
But the interim appointments portion, Senator,
but the stuff that's in the sense of the Senate resolution is not in the bill. The sense of the Senate resolution talks about that we want to be consulted on interim appointments. There's nothing in the bill that deals with that. It talks about that if the governor wishes to make an interim appointment, that he should notify the president, to give the president sufficient time to talk with senators about it, and that then only would we consider an interim appointment for a permanent position thereafter. None of that language is in the bill.
But the effect of it is in the bill of how the interim appointment would be made if when the Senate is not in session. Correct?
It's the language that's in the sense of the Senate resolution is not in the bill.
I understand not the language, but the effect of
the effect of it is not in the bill. So I mean, there's language about interim appointments that is a response to the lawsuit, and it says the only thing it really does on interim appointments is it says that the Senate has the ability to reject interim appointments, and that an interim appointment must be made during the interim in which the vacancy occurred. That's the only thing that the bill does with interim appointments. The sense of the Senate resolution didn't touch on those issues. What we talked about in the sense of the Senate resolution, what the concern was at the time was that interim appointments had been made over the last interim, and they were made without any consultation. We were just told, this is who we're doing, which was a deviation from what the historical practice had been. So what we tried to do with the sense of Senate resolution was just to deliver a message that we think that courtesy, respect, constitutional prerogatives require that the executive consult with the Senate, even in those situations. But that's not what the bill does.
And so outside of that, the bill, though, in general, it sticks with process for a host of different appointments, boards, et cetera, correct?
It sticks with the process. You still have the interim appointments process. It sticks with the current process for nominating for boards, commissions, executive heads, agency heads. The only difference there, two differences. Number one is there are a number of areas where the Senate currently has advice and consent that this bill would relinquish that authority to the governor in those 34, 35, 36, however many agencies or appointment areas it is now. It also says that the agency heads would serve coterminous with the governor, which would give the Senate an opportunity to review performance every 4 years, whereas right now, once you confirm somebody, they don't come back at all. That's really the only deviation from the current appointments process.
But that is a process. It is
a process.
And so the amendment that was voted on last week is not about a process, it's about a specific position and gives a specific timeline.
It's about correcting a mistake that the legislature made in the legislation that split DHEC into multiple agencies. And in that legislation, we said that the current director will continue to serve until his successor is confirmed. We were not anticipating this situation, that person could just continue to serve forever, which he could, right? You could have a governor elected in November. If that person chose not to change, we couldn't get at the director over there because of that legislation. Now, the Governor McMaster, made a nomination for Dr. Simmer for the permanent position. The committee rejected it, but because the way that legislation is written, he continues to serve until he decides not to, or the Senate confirms somebody else. Now, I think that was a mistake, but it was a mistake that we did not anticipate. And that amendment is merely a correction of that mistake. And it vacates it at the end of the session. It does not vacate it today. It gives time, notice to the individual and also to the governor that it would happen at the end. May 14th was not done because of the senator's birthday. It was done because that's sine die, which is much more of a reason to celebrate than the senator's birthday.
But so, Senator, but to that point, so the amendment corrects that whoever, and I'm not going to use names, but whoever the director that was in could serve basically forever.
It vacates the office as of May 14th.
It corrects that.
And a senator from Charleston didn't understand which year we were talking about. We were talking about the current one.
But so it corrects that. So having this, the current amendment that's on the thing, making that date December 31st, it still corrects that. It vacates it as of that date. So it still corrects the legislation. It makes that legislative fix that you're talking about, because now that person can't serve forever.
In that sense, I think you're right. I think, however, that would not reflect where the supermajority of this body is.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. President, I renew my motion to table the amendment.
Is to table the amendment. Roll call has been requested. More than 5 requests. Clerk will ring the bell. Reading clerk will call the roll of the Senate on the motion to table the amendment.
Mr. Adams? Aye. Mr. Alexander? Aye. Mr. Allen? No. Mr. Bennett? Not voting. Mr. Blackman? Aye. Mr. Bright? Aye. Mr. Campson? Aye. Mr. Cash? Aye. Mr. Chaplin? Aye. Mr. Clymer? Aye. Mr. Corbin? Aye. Mr. Cromer? No. Mr. Davis? Aye. Mrs. Devine? No. Mr. Elliott? Aye. Mr. Fernandez? Aye. Mr. Gamble? Aye. Mr. Garrett has leave. Mr. Goldfinch? Aye. Mr. Graham? No. Mr. Grooms? Not voting. Mr. Hembry? Aye. Mr. Hutto? No. Mr. Jackson? Not voting. Mr. Johnson? Aye. Mr. Kennedy has leave. Mr. Kimbrell? Aye. Mr. Lieber? Aye. Mr. Martin? Aye. Mr. Massey? Aye. Mrs. Matthews? No. Mr. Ott? No. Mr. Peeler? Aye. Mr. Rankin? Not voting, Mr. Rickabaugh? Aye. Mr. Rice? Votes aye. Mr. Sabb? No. Mr. Stubbs? Not voting, Mr. Sutton? No. Mr. Tedder? No. Mr. Turner? Aye. Mr. Verdon? Aye. Mr. Walker? No. Mr. Williams? No. Mr. Young? Aye. Mr. Zell? Aye.
All senators voted. Senator Stubbs votes aye.